of the most industrialized nations. The G20 summit later this year.
Gauteng must showcase itself to the world. The eyes of the world will be rained on Gauteng. They will be rained on Johannesburg. And Johannesburg and Gauteng must be at its best in terms of the physical presentation, in terms of the environmental presentation.
City of Johannesburg manager Tshepo Makola is testifying about the role of the city when it comes to abandoned and hijacked buildings at the Commission of Inquiry into the Usindiso building fire. The inquiry, also known as the Khampepe Commission, is underway in Midrand and is looking into the Johannesburg CBD fire that claimed the lives of 76 residents in 2023. Pearl Magubane reports.
The commission was established by Premier Panyaza Lesufi following the deadly Usindiso building fire, which claimed the lives of 76 people, leaving others displaced. Makula is testifying on the city's role in interventions and addressing challenges, which include dilapidated and hijacked buildings in the Johannesburg CBD.
The farming community in Stockport and Thabazimbi in Limpopo has been left stranded after many farms were flooded and crops submerged. The Stockport border post has been closed after floods left it inaccessible. A game lodge near the Stockport border post is also partly flooded. The co-owner of the lodge, Willem de Tooy, says they will assess the extent of the damage when the water has subsided.
It's been quite disruptive. One of the pivots was almost completely underwater. About 60% of the farm were underwater, and most of those places won't be able to reach for 1 to 2 weeks for waiting for it to dry down because it's mud. You'll get stuck there easily. Even walking there is a challenge.
Meanwhile, Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen earlier said measures should be put in place to assist affected farmers in the area. Steenhuisen has called on the Limpopo Agriculture Department to declare a state of disaster.
The key priorities are to get electricity back up and running so those farmers that still have crops under irrigation are able to irrigate. Secondly, to get the roads up and running again as quickly as possible so those people are able to get their products to mills and to markets as quickly as possible. But in the longer term, we're going to have to look at how we mitigate and protect our farming areas from very clearly the effects of climate change that are starting to have a huge impact on agriculture.
And finally, further afield, US President Donald Trump has issued what he called a last warning to Hamas to immediately release all the hostages still held in Gaza. Trump says he was sending Israel everything it needs to, in his words, finish the job if his demands weren't met. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has the details.
This was a strongly worded statement from President Trump on his Truth Social platform after he met 8 former hostages at the White House. He called Hamas sick and twisted, warning the armed group, "It is over for you if other captives aren't immediately released." At the same time, Washington has confirmed sending an envoy for unprecedented direct talks with Hamas. A Palestinian official told the BBC that 2 meetings took place in Qatar, focused on the fate of US hostages.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has deplored the state of Gauteng and its municipalities, instructing its leaders to fix the province ahead of the G20 summit. He was speaking during his interaction with the provincial leadership at the Johannesburg Council Chambers in Bloemfontein earlier today. For SFM News, I am Utsi Lesaku, back with headlines at 3:30.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Currie Cup spots are up for grabs in the second edition of SA Cup Comrades Marathon to introduce 2 race starts, and Nzeki confirms Saleng's Bafana omission. More details at 3:30 rather.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Pietermaritzburg.
Day 15. Location undisclosed. Mood brave. Music Eye of the Tiger. Dear Diary, it's been 2 weeks of epic challenges against some of the most memorable and epic Survivor contestants. I have endured some harsh weather conditions, unbelievable drama, and these fire tokens have given me and the other contestants a second chance to stay in the game. Food. I feast on the defeat of my enemies. Vumi over there is busy planning and scheming, thinking that he can get me off the island. Never mind though. I will win this and take home $2 million. We're gonna be rich, Papa.
Rich Goopy Wanaponani, are you doing that thing again? Come and get your dinner, Mr. Fake Diary Sessions. We're now on Survivor. Oh, the world will fall.
Catch Survivor Season 40, Winners at War. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Starts 27 February on S3. Open now.
Mzansi Africa. SABC Sport is searching for talented football commentators. Are you knowledgeable and passionate about football commentary? Are you a great storyteller of the beautiful game?
That's why they're very good in controlling the ball and keeping it in minutes.
Submit a 2-minute commentary clip in your South African language of choice to commentator@sabcsport.co.za. Also email your full name, surname and contact details. Closing date is on Friday, 7 March 2025. Only shortlisted candidates will be invited for the second round of auditions at SABC Studios in March. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Right, has your medical aid gone up this year? Well, if so, that does not mean that you have to pay more for your car insurance too. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 rands in cash. And make that 1,500 rands if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. So either way, right? SMS out to 30754. You got that? Out 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And a warm welcome to you. 3 hours of the National Pulse, 3 hours of us agenda setting the biggest issues that matters, 3 hours of you and I feeling each other out, truly trying to relate what happens at national level and how you and I internalize all of that. All those reasons for you to stay tuned to the show for the next 3 hours. My name is Ashraf Garda. Of course, you can connect, you can call in. So save this number permanently, 086 000 2032, and then you have the option to WhatsApp or text us via voice note or text via WhatsApp 0614 104 107, and many people already asking questions on Twitter or the X platform. So tweet us with your questions, with your comments, tag SFM Radio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. Right. Okay, let's get to this issue that we must talk about, and I don't want to delay it at all, right? The reality is clear. South Africa has reached, if not surpassed, its tax collection ceiling. There is little left to extract from taxpayers, and any increase of VAT must be an absolute last resort. Okay, that's not me talking, but I may well agree. That's the position of Outer and their CEO, Wayne Duvenage. So we thought, hey, let's get Wayne to talk to us, because I believe they've got some ideas how to avoid that 2 percentage point VAT increase. Wayne, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, nice to be with you again. Thank you.
Thank you. So not only do you clearly disagree with any suggestions of a percentage point increase or two with VAT, as has almost happened a couple of weeks back, you've got your own thoughts, right? And understand you've got 11 points as to what the Treasury, I would think, and the Minister should take seriously to avoid that increase, but still to ensure that government has the money. So you have a blank canvas. Go for it. Let's get point one.
Yes, thanks very much, Ashraf. So I think there's even more than this when you start applying your mind and listening to this. So many people that have got good insights. But what we've seen and our frustration is that government just keeps going to this space of, well, we need more money, so let's go and get it, instead of becoming prudent in how they manage our funds. And when we look at maladministration, corruption, wasteful expenditure, it's just so frustrating to see how much waste and money falls on the floor. So you should never, as a government, come and ask for more money if you're wasting. And so I think the first one, it's a very big one, and it was actually Edward Kieswetter, who is probably the best person positioned to say, you know, we have got so much that we're not collecting through what they see as tax evasion from high net worth individuals and corporates, illicit financial flows, under invoicing, and customs fraud. And if SARS was capacitated, as they were before Tom Moyane came in and decimated that capacity that they had built, we'd be able to go and fetch so much more money. And he speaks of, you know, 450 billion rand per annum on an annual basis going forward. And we're saying, well, if you just even take 75% of that, we're talking about 337 billion rand a year.
So point one, capacitate SARS. They're already doing a good job.
Yeah.
Capacitate them. Okay, got that. Number two?
Is broaden the tax base. So we've got a lot of informal industry, and certainly the taxi industry that is not within the tax base. If you just go and start doing that, start off slowly, we should be able to get 2 billion rand a year and build that up to about 9 billion rand per annum going forward. And it's not to punish the taxi industry or whatever. It's to say you are formalized, you are businesses, you need to be brought into the net. There's no reason why an industry like the taxi industry should not be taxed.
Okay.
And that's the second one, yeah.
So let me jump in there. You know, yesterday we had a discussion about taxi drivers and so many people furious with them about them breaking the law. That's another conversation. Don't comment on that. But are you suggesting that this formal taxi industry does not pay tax?
They're not taxed at all. Not the businesses, not the profits, not the PAYE. There's nothing flowing through the taxi industry when it comes to them being registered as formal businesses and paying taxes.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on this, because, you know, you may well be quoted on this one. We're not talking about them being registered and then people, you know, obviously avoid or evade paying taxes, and these things happen, right? Or they're slow in submitting. That happens across the board. You're saying, in fact, at this point in time, if we asked like Santaco, for example, what taxes do you pay? They say, we don't pay taxes. Is that what you're going to tell me?
The taxi industry, the companies there are many businesses that own taxis that are part of the various taxi associations. Those companies are not paying tax. They're not registered as taxpayers.
And why is that not the case?
Well, because it's just not pursued. It's not chased. I mean, they do register their drivers. They have to get public driver's permits, and they have to register their routes and so forth. But they're not formally registered as businesses, and that's a concern. It's been a concern that's been raised for many years. And then just, you know, there's the whole informal sector, which again, and you know, it's estimated to be about 30% of GDP. If you start to find the low-hanging fruit in the informal sector, make it formalized, because the more formalized, the more organized a nation is, the more you get people contributing to the tax base.
Which means what? Remove the barriers of entry to actually formalize a business, to register them, get them to do that as quickly as possible, show them the benefits of being registered, and then they will then pay taxes, as opposed to continuously being informal and never paying anything.
Yeah, being outside the tax net, but then also being informal. You constantly have to trade in cash. You're not, you're not banked. You're not registered formally in the system, and it makes it difficult for them as well. I think many of the informal industry players would like to be formalized and pay tax, because, and you know, when you say that, people say, no, nobody wants to pay tax. Well, I always say that if you're paying tax, you're doing something right, and you are earning funds. So accept that tax is a reality, and get there.
Okay, so point two, formalize the informal industry, and the point about the taxi drivers noted. Somebody's going to comment about the taxi drivers, I have no doubt about it, or the industry. Right, point three?
So cut non-essential government spending, and we can see in the work that we do that there is, over time, what happens is you get contracts and company and government departments just stay locked into contracts that get continuous increases in VAT in normal CPI increases. We're saying, and we're quite surprised at the minister saying, what's the zero-based budgeting? He doesn't understand it or agree with it. Sadly, his predecessor, Tito Mboweni, the late Tito Mboweni, spoke very highly of zero-based budgeting. So what we're saying is government needs to go and have a good look at all its contracts. For instance, the rents that government pays into the private sector after COVID, we could see that there was a massive amount of opportunity to go and reduce your rental costs, and we don't think government has seized upon that opportunity. There's many empty government buildings, and government far down the road, departments are renting private sector buildings. Why do we not get into the buildings that we already own, just fix them up?
Okay.
So there's a lot of non-essential spending.
Got that. Let's move on to 4 very quickly. Number 4.
Yes, so recover state capture and corrupt funds. I think that's a fait accompli. I mean, not a fait accompli. It's got to be done. The Zondo Commission's made it clear. There's an indication of about 10 billion rand that we can go and fetch there.
Okay, why has that not happened, according to you?
Well, it's just not happened enough. There's been a little bit of recovery from ABB and a couple of others, but I don't believe we are using the assets forfeiture unit enough. The special investigations unit is managing to collect some funds, but if you look at the Zondo Commission and how much has been looted, and the people that are involved, we haven't even touched the surface when it comes to recovering those funds.
Right, number 5.
So release accumulated surpluses that have been built up in many state entities. Just in one area, in the higher education department, 26 entities there have got a surplus of 55 billion rand. Now, government departments like this, if they don't spend their money, if they collect too much, they're not supposed to keep surpluses. They're supposed to give that back, and yet they're not being asked to do so, or not being handled more efficiently in that regard. Here's government now wanting to increase VAT by 2% because they're short of around 55 billion rand. Well, just releasing the surpluses in the higher education department will give them 55 billion rand tomorrow.
Okay, wow. Right. Yeah. Strangely enough, we've got 2 minutes. So I would ask you to just rattle off the balance in the 2 minutes you have, because they're all very important.
Revisit some of the skills development levies. We're saying that 1% of payroll we're not getting bang for buck there. If they reduce that by 25%, the minister would find another 4 billion rand there. Revisit the National Skills Fund expenditure. We saw a lot of corruption there. About 1.7 billion rand a year has been lost due to inadequacies there. NSFAS, we know there's a lot of ghost learners and manipulation there, about 1 billion rand a year. Increase to syntaxes, we believe, 10% increase there will give them another 3 billion rand. Number 8, sell underutilized state assets. They cost a lot of money just standing there. Let's make money out of those. Address mismanagement of municipalities and the conditional grants. So they get these conditional grants and they get these bailouts, and yet they don't pay Eskom, and we end up having to bail out municipalities. So they need to be far more stringent in that space. And then we believe this whole area of clamping down on government procurement, corruption, and wasteful expenditure. The Auditor General gives us a good dashboard and a good oversight of where it's happening, why it's happening, and I don't think government's paying enough attention to deal with that. And then the last one is just review the rules and fees around government boards. We see too many boards. They're bloated. They're highly paid. They do attend far too more meetings than they should. It really has just become an employment agency, and they should get 300 million rand.
I was going to ask you, are you on a government board? Don't answer that, fine. But maybe answer this one. I mean, you've just effectively delivered your very own budget speech, or the budget speech that we would like to hear, right? Why do you think these are pretty simple, straightforward things, right? They're not rocket science stuff. Why do you think so few of these have been implemented?
You know, Ashraf, the mind boggles. We cannot understand it. We keep saying, well, why isn't government going after tightening its belt, cutting its cloth to suit its spending habits? It's just absolutely absurd that this isn't happening. I think it's hard work, maybe. It's work that they don't really want to get to. There's a lot of money, by the way, being made in maladministration and wasteful expenditure by people connected to the syndicates, and I somehow get a feeling that government officials don't want us to go down this road because it might close the taps on lucrative money that's being earned.
And lastly, just a one-line answer. What do you think is going to happen at the budget speech?
I think you're going to see a small VAT increase, possibly 50 cents on the fuel levy. That'll give them another 10 billion, and they're going to scrounge here and there. It's going to be very interesting to see what the minister does say there.
All right. Well, I said what you've set the budget speech agenda. Thank you for that, Wayne. If you've got further comments, feel free to just add those comments. You can tweet it out. That's yourself, Wayne. Just tweet it out to your outside, and we'd certainly share that if you tag me and SFM Radio here on the National Pulse. There we are. So that's the budget on the National Pulse, according to Wayne Duvenage. Now, which parts do you agree with? Of course, which parts don't you agree with? And do you have any better ideas than what has been suggested from Wayne Duvenage at Outer? This is the National Pulse.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football at its intimate. Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, Sunday World keeps you updated. Get breaking news, sports action, and exclusive celeb scoops at your fingertips. Read it, stream it, listen to it. Sunday World, news for all, anytime, anywhere.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Well, I'll tell you what, this issue of the taxi tax has got me on the back foot. I mean, is Wayne Duvenage correct? We're not talking of individuals who work for as taxi drivers. We're talking of the taxi businesses. He's saying emphatically they do not pay taxes. Not at all. Come on, teach me something I don't know. If you know more, I want to know. 0614 104 107, voice notes, or to call in 086 000 2032. Right, in the meantime, let's get into another big issue. There's clearly a case of the USA versus China in a tariff war. And where is all of that going to end? Yeah, that really is the big question, isn't it? How do we turn that around, if indeed we can? Gideon Chitanga with me, a researcher at the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Joburg. Gideon, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Gideon, do I have you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can. I appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to preface the conversation with you about this trade war between China and the USA. I mean, is that accurate, or are we exaggerating what is at stake here?
I think at this stage, it looks very much like a tit for tat, a tariff cycle, and I guess that it's a bit of a trade war. We don't know whether it will intensify. We don't know whether the current indications that we are seeing are of two of the biggest major powers throwing their bids, trying to manage their environment expecting that at some point there could be negotiations. But what we have seen at this moment, I think 2 or 3 very serious regimes of tariffs imposed on China by the U.S., and we have seen China respond in a way that clearly indicates that it has capacity to counter tariff the U.S. But I think within that response, they have indicated the desire to at least maintain good relations and steer away from this kind of bullying tit for tat and create a room for dialogue and engage, specifically to foster a trade environment that legitimately looks after any of the state parties that are involved in trading.
Okay, and does a tit for tat trade increase, tariff increase rather, get them to sit at the table? I think Canada's doing the same thing, also responding to the USA, right?
Yes, Canada, Mexico, China. The other parties also who have been sanctioned without really room for dialogue to address the... In fact, it's not clear what the U.S. is seeking from its sanctions. What you get is the argument that Washington wants to boost domestic economic growth. It's not immediately evident that Washington can achieve domestic economic growth or advantageous domestic economic growth by tariffing other countries. The targeted countries, I think it's not clear beyond seeing the escalation of tariffs what Washington seeks or wants or expects from them. They have sent indications or signals to Washington to say, let's engage, let's dialogue, let's respect the rules of international trade. But at the moment, it looks like the new Trump government is not at that phase where it's willing to listen, engage, and negotiate and stick to international rules on free trade.
And therefore, this comment, a government communique from China saying, and I'm quoting, if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. Now, we've been so used to huge remarks, highly inflammatory remarks from Donald Trump in the last few weeks. This one, not from Trump, but from China, is very much amongst the big inflammatory remarks that we've heard all year, isn't it?
So I think what the message really sends a very strong message back to Washington to say that China, Beijing, is ready to deal with whatever consequences that might emerge from the tariffs. And China has went further to also counter tariff Washington. So I think it's a posture that really indicates that we can go into this cycle and maybe hurt each other, but do not think that the coercive tariffs will at least reward Washington by at least accruing, I think, a beneficial coercive outcomes outside going to the path of negotiating and sticking to the rules of free trade that benefits everyone. In this instance, what if you look at how this tariff policy of Donald Trump emerged, it looks like on one end it is a whip to leverage some kind of diplomatic ends from other countries, but also on the second hand, it looks like a winner takes all kind of approach to international trade or international politics, and surely other countries are entitled to responding in the best ways they can to protect their interests, either economic or political, and that is the problem with tariffs, because if you exclude other countries from your market, they definitely will seek to exclude you from their markets and protect their own interests by enhancing their own economic activities, either within their countries or with other parties. So this is where we are.
Okay, and just a quick answer to this question as we got onto news now. In a case like this, do you see it as a case of effectively lose-lose as opposed to win-win?
Yeah, it's potentially a lose-lose situation, but I think a country like China is very sophisticated. It's one of the major producers of new technologies. He has a very strong manufacturing industry. So the cost of tariffs really will not be as severe as a weaker economy like Mexico. I believe that a big economy like China can absorb some shocks. It will feel some interruptions. But on the long run, tariffs benefits no one. And I think this is why these big powers would be interested in open free trade, which has driven the quickest economic growth that we have never ever known in history.
Let's leave it at that. Gideon Chuchanga, researcher at the Center for Africa-China Studies at UGen. Perhaps the broader question is the United States playing the type of chessboard game that would see them effectively in isolation? Not splendid isolation, but in isolation. Think about that. Let's get the news headlines. Jesut Sila.
Thanks, Ashraf. Good afternoon. In the headlines, the Universal Healthcare Access Coalition has called for the implementation of a full package of health market inquiry recommendations to improve South Africa's private healthcare system. President Cyril Ramaphosa has deplored the state of Gauteng and its municipalities, instructing its leaders to fix the province ahead of the G20 summit. And Gauteng police have arrested 2 suspects for manufacturing and possession of drugs worth more than 10 million rand. The arrests come after an intelligence-driven operation which led police to a plot in Western area on Gauteng's West Rand where Mandrax tablets were allegedly being manufactured. Details at 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, the M2 westbound in central Johannesburg, queuing on the link to the M1 north of Crown interchange, and the M1 northbound in Boysons has a crash reported after Crown interchange. In KZN, the N3 southbound, a truck fire incident reported near Escourt North interchange, so you're asked to expect delays. On the N2, a truck fire incident reported outside Port Shepstone near Machushan, so you're asked to expect delays and diversions. And the N3 westbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. In Cape Town, Kloofneck Road outbound is slow moving through Tamboerskloof. Victoria Road is slow moving through Woodstock. Voortrekker Road slow moving through Maitland. And on the R27, a truck crash reported on Van Reyns Pass. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, to me, yesterday is all about the South African cricket team. Now you go domestic, and we're not even talking cricket any longer. We move sports completely. Let's talk Currie Cup rugby.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. The road to qualification for the 2025 Currie Cup, it kicks off this week in Mpumalanga with the start of the second edition of the SA Cup. 10 provincial sides will battle it out for the title and 4 places at the top of the table. First up tomorrow is when the Pumas Bombers host the SWD Eagles at Mbombela Stadium in Nelspruit. In athletics, for the first time in the history of the Comrades Marathon, there'll be different race starts as the countdown to the 49th Comrades Marathon Down Under draws closer. Now, the Ultra Marathon will have two starts apart at 5:45 and 6 a.m. and this is just to help reduce congestion on the course. In football, Bafana Bafana interim coach Bolefi Ntseki has confirmed that Orlando Pirates winger Monapule Saleng is among 4 players released from the national team. Bafana travelled to face Egypt in their second leg African Nations Championship qualifier in Cairo on Sunday, with Saleng, who has not featured for Pirates since December last year, set to miss the trip after featuring in the first leg last Sunday. Without shedding light on the reasons behind the 26-year-old's release from camp, Ntseki confirmed changes to the travelling squad.
Yeah, Saleng is not part of the group that will be travelling to Egypt. So the players that are here will give us a very good balance. So we are looking forward to give other players a chance, like anybody was given a chance against Egypt in the first leg, and they did well, and we are very positive with what we have in camp going into Egypt. We know they will be giving their best and the best for their country.
Meanwhile, Bayern Munich captain Manuel Neuer is set for a stint on the sidelines. This is after tearing his calf muscle during celebration in yesterday's 3-0 Champions League win over Bayer Leverkusen. Now, Neuer was seen limping and was subbed out in the second half of the last 16 first-leg tie, just after Jamal put Bayern 2-0 up. Now, Bayern travel to Leverkusen for the return Champions League leg next week in a dominant position. Finally, in tennis, Naomi Osaka's roller coaster season continued with a first round loss at Indian Wells today that left the 4-time Grand Slam winner apologizing on social media. The former world number 1 says that the match was the worst match that she's ever played in her life. This is after falling 6-4 and 6-4 to Colombia's Camila Osorio. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Just a quick one. Did you see Liverpool play last night? They won against PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. But they were so outplayed. This is the Liverpool team that are favourites to win the Champions League. Their goalkeeper, what's his name? The Brazilian goalkeeper, right? I forget his name. Anyway, Temba will probably remind me. But Alisson, Keys is coming here. I was like, okay, Alisson. Remember Alisson Becker, I think it is, right? He got a 10 out of 10 rating for his performance, for the amount of saves he made. And Liverpool had one shot at goal.
Sure. Interesting. I couldn't watch it because, unfortunately, the weather was horrific and our electricity was out. Even now, it's still out.
Same like so many of us. Okay. Thank you. Let's talk more sport and electricity, power failures in an hour.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, by the way, lots of people wanting to comment about the taxi tax. I heard about techie tax. Remember, that's about techies, right? But this is taxi tax story. So Rohan saying, Ashraf, afternoon, I seem to remember an article on MoneyWeb that stated taxi industry paid 5 million rands in taxes. Maybe check with Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy from the MoneyWeb or SFM Market Update. Probably need to find out more about it. Absolutely, we need to find out about it, right? Okay, we get to your calls, your comments, because I want to get a feel of your pulse in a few minutes' time. But to get us there, this is important. And here's a question. Is South Africa ready for electronic voting? Are we or not? I asked that question because in the next 4 days, the Electoral Commission will host a 3-day e-voting conference in Cape Town. I'm just thinking, why can't they do that online, if you get my point? To start a public conversation about the prospect of electronic voting during South Africa's elections. Okay, let's find out more about it with Mr. Masego Sheburi, who's the IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Masego, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you. So are you saying that the amongst the many things in this coming together is there is a proposal on the table for us to go electronic voting in our elections?
We have just concluded a study on the perceptions of South Africans on e-voting. And one thing that has become clear is that there are varied understanding of what e-voting is, what it is that it can do, and what it is that it can't do. So we're starting a country dialogue so that we can narrow down misunderstanding and come to a common cause to say, if the country were to adopt e-voting, what is it that it should do? And to start that discussion, we will have this conference on next week in Cape Town. And there is a tactile element to that conference also, in that on the sidelines, e-technology vendors will be in attendance to demonstrate their wares, and so that policymakers can interface and interact with those various technologies to see the development of technology in this field and the limitations, if there are still any.
And I mean, based upon what you know now, fine, I understand there'll be presentations made, but are we far off from implementing? Because the argument would be that, we're a developmental state and many people live in rural communities and they have no access to Wi-Fi and other forms of connectivity and gadgets that we take for granted, or others in other countries take for granted.
I can understand why people will conclude that way, but that will be a misrepresentation of the totality of what is available in the e-voting space. If you're talking about remote voting, certainly those will be limitations. However, it is also possible to introduce e-voting at a voting station where it is controlled, and therefore you transcend those real difficulties of access and non-access, of broad-width penetration, and communities that still do not have those facilities. So the conversation must help us then to say, for a country like South Africa, because technology is not neutral, what is the type of technology that is suited to the country? But more importantly, if we achieve anything, we must have a business case to say, if we move towards e-voting, what it is that we're trying to resolve.
Okay. What do you think? What are we trying to resolve?
From an election management body, there are at least two primary considerations. One, can use of technology in elections further enhance the voting experience for voters? Can it lessen the time that people spend in queues, considering that with each election, then the size of the ballot paper increases, and it's placing serious cognitive demands on the voter to identify a party of their choice and to vote for that party with confidence.
So are you saying, carry on, go ahead, please. Yeah.
The second point is to say, given the litigious nature of elections and given the contestations, are there areas in which you could use technology to further enhance and safeguard the outcome of election? By that we mean, is there a way that could shorten the counting process and make it almost bulletproof, to say that we counted the station, immediately thereafter you release a result which is a true reflection of the votes cast by the voters?
Now, I mean, I certainly, from a very personal point of view, I'm absolutely on side when it comes to using technology and being more innovative than we ever can be, because we're doing it every day anyway, right? But here's a counter to that. So I would agree that those that say that, that using ballot sheets as we know them, traditional ballot sheets, is even riskier than using electronic voting. There's always things of something falling off a truck, somebody claiming they've counted in a certain way, and that may not be true. Never mind, there are witnesses, and I can go on with many other examples. But the flip side of that is what happened at the last election. I think there was a period of about 2 or 3 minutes that electronic scoreboard at the National Voting Centre went completely dead, and nobody knew what happened. And there were allegations, that, based on that. How do you counter that argument?
Indeed, in anything that is automated and in technology, there are likely to be mishaps. But the reassuring thing is that even when the leaderboard went down in last election, it did not impact on the result system. The result system was still operational. Parties that have access to it could still see the results coming in. On our part, we could still see the results coming in, and we could, more importantly, still aggregate the results even when the screen went down. Obviously, we could have done without it, without the screen going down. But in building a future system, those are the things that you should look out for. But it is not enough to shy away from innovation because of fear of one or the other things going wrong.
So, I mean, is it therefore fair to say, and I'm looking at critics again, and they say, this is just nonsense, man, just stay with what we have, that innovation and the drive for innovation is this, that it's like suggesting, those that are critical of it, is like suggesting we all drop our mobile phones and go back to the traditional landline phones and maybe the party lines that we used to have before. Those days are long gone. We have to embrace the technological advancement of the world right now. So like it or not, an electronic form of voting is going to happen sooner or later.
That policy choice is a choice that must be taken by policy makers. On our part, we could contribute to that debate and a proper understanding of e-voting by doing the research that we've done, by doing the conferences that we will be doing to share experience, so that once decisions are made, they are made on an informed basis. The Commission does not have a preference either way on the adoption of technology. If the policy decision is taken that we're going to e-voting, we must be able to advise the policymakers of the pitfalls and what it is that you require to have a properly rolled out e-voting. So as we speak now, our local our voting process, which is manual, serves us well, but it also has limitation. As I indicated, with each election, the number of parties increase. Last election, we had a ballot paper for the first time printed in 2 columns with over 55 parties, and therefore it becomes more difficult for people to identify their party, and it prolongs the voting process. Is there something that could be done using technology to shorten that and improve the experience? By all means, if there are innovations that could do that, the Commission will look favorably at those.
Okay. And just finally, who makes the final decision? I mean, is it the IEC that makes the proposal and the decision, or the IEC that makes that decision, but rather proposal, but the decision has to be made in Parliament, for example?
We think we are an important stakeholder, but even us are not that important. The decision rests with the representative of the people, which is Parliament. Ultimately, Parliament will approve, and if it approves, it will make the legislative scheme that will enable the roll down of electronic voting. It is not a responsibility we desire, but we will advise on the pitfalls.
Okay, fascinating indeed. Maseko Shiburi, thank you for your time. The IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Appreciate that. And here's a question to you, wherever you may be around the country, around the world. If you're a South African and you're going to vote, so would you say electronic voting, yes or yay or nay? Which one do you vote for? How about you voting now? And you can do that on social media. Just tag us on SAFM Radio, on the Twitter platform. But you can also WhatsApp right away. Just electronic voting, yay, electronic voting, nay. Simple one. I'd love to know. 0614 104 107. And that's the WhatsApp number to do that vote. Right. Your calls, your comments, your views next.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
The Golden Boys want to ensure their visitors return to Free State with disappointed faces. But Batabane Bantwa are ready to demonstrate how real warriors win tough battles. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal. Catch Durban City FC and Maruma Gallants FC this Sunday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons, right here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, with me, KG Mweketi.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Okay, we've had a couple of. We put out a vote line on the X Factor, the X platform. So check it out, SAFM Radio. We put a vote where you can vote yes or no regarding electronic voting, and of course there's comment, understandably so. Ashraf, that's a great idea. But the country doesn't have the capacity. That thing will jam on the last days. And then Nafi saying yes to e-voting. Let's get further comments. But I want to pick up on the issue of taxi checks. Sibu in Free State, go for it.
Hi, Alfred, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Right, what's your point?
I'm good. Alfred, tax for taxis.
Yeah.
I think that it's something which government needs to consider, but it will be quite difficult to say that we need to implement it. Because as you know, that the taxi industry, it's a catch-paying system. So proving exactly to say that how much did the owner make for that month, you won't be able to, because it's a catch industry, which means that you won't be. If I told you that I made 500 rand for a day, you just have to believe what I'm saying. You see, but I think that if government was really serious about getting into it, they would really be able to do it, and they'll be able to actually help also the passengers that are using, because I believe that a lot of people in South Africa are using those services, and that's where most of the money goes, even bigger than our bigger corporation like our Shoprite.
Well, it's a huge industry. I agree with you completely. The point is, although it's a cash-based industry, and I hear that, that doesn't mean that the taxi industry shouldn't pay taxes. Now, I understand if people get cash, they may declare less. It's easier to do that. But still, the principle is not about being found out. The principle of, like, do they need to pay taxes or not?
They need to pay taxes, because, I mean, there are people that are in business and they are using mostly the services which people are needing. And so those services that they are using, they are really using it for free, because it's at their expense. Because remember that the tax that they will be paying, it will help government in order to have certain services to be delivered to the people of South Africa.
Okay, thank you for raising that. I mean, somebody else said, well, you know what? If they pay taxes, then they're going to. That means huge loss of profits, right? That means they're going to add on to the taxi prices. But when you all pay taxes, then there can be rebates. Government can come back and actually subsidize that industry even more than they may be doing right now, provided they pay taxes. I'm not saying they're not paying. I'm saying I didn't know that. I'm being naive. I didn't know if Wayne Duvenage is saying they don't pay taxes. He's not talking about individual drivers. He's talking about taxi owners. He's saying they do not pay taxes. And I'm saying I'm shocked that you can say that up front, that an entire industry, we're not talking about one person, an entire industry is not paying taxes. Really? Lala in Polokwane, hello.
Good morning, Asha.
Yeah, good.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true that the taxi people are not paying tax, but all of them, when you need the tax certificate, they have a valid tax certificate. Why are they having it? It's because when they are doing their submission every year, they put 00, that they've never received anything, they've never had any profit, they've never had any revenue. So that's why they have the valid tax certificate, even though they are not paying tax. So the government or the tax the staff, they are also very lazy to change this thing and to check if these people are submitting the correct information, because they need to find out if you are saying you are not making profit or you are not making any revenue, because to start with they'll say 00 on income. So why are you able to repay for your car finance? Where are you getting the money for petrol? Why don't you show that you have some losses, you have some profit, some or some income, and then, like as you just said, so that SARS will be able to reimburse them. So they are not paying at all. They are defrauding the government. And it's not only the taxi people, even other people who are also doing business with the government, who are also having tenders.
Okay, but I mean, let's stay with the taxi, because I mean, that's really the area that we're talking about now. Lala, thanks for that comment. Well, there you are. Well, I mean, so Lala's saying an interesting thing, that in fact, many of them are registered taxpayers, and they register a no return, no revenue, so no income, no expense. That means they haven't traded. So, okay, here's the question. If you haven't traded in year 1, and you haven't traded in year 2, and you haven't traded in year 3, you're still saying, please, I need to register for year 4. Like, you should be out of business. And then the second part, as is suggested, how are they able to pay for the cars? I don't know. It's complex. I'd love to know more. Chico in Soweto, talk about taxi tax.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Go for it. Your point?
My point about the taxis not paying tax. They do pay tax, but their tax it's not the formal one. It's a quid pro quo. Give something for something. Their taxes, it's where they cahoot with government via shipments in Gabi. That is why most of in Gabi they have cavelas, so they do pay tax by using Inkabi to go around killing people. That's their tax base. Understand?
Well, I'm battling to understand what you mean. So you're saying they pay a different sort of tax, an illegal tax. Is that what you're saying?
Their tax it's a Dutch site, because they are using Inkabi. They pay Inkabi via taxi owners. Understand? That is why most of Inkabi, they are wearing cavelas, which means they do have deals with speeds. Most of Inkabi, they are wearing cavelas. So their tax, it's based on that. Hiring hitmen via taxi bosses to go around killing people.
All right, we need to find out more about it. Chico, thanks for that. I'll tell you what, anybody, are you a taxi driver? Are you a taxi company owner? Are you part of the umbrella bodies like Sentaco, for example? Can you please help us when somebody claims that you as an entire industry does not pay taxes? You can't just leave it alone. So let us know so we know more. Someone saying, Joseph, I think it is, saying, I like the idea of e-voting. then we can slash the budget of the IEC. Well, okay, that may be true. Here's another one, Ashraf. It's true. Taxis don't pay tax. And I think the easy way to tax them is if we calculate how much on average is taxi installments and put a standard tax based on that calculation. Meaning, if you have the taxi, you're for the installment. If you're for the installment, then you're working. Then you pay tax. Taxi tax. Oh my goodness. I never thought we'll talk about this today on the National Pulse.
Theo in Cape Town. Ashraf, taxi driver don't pay tax at all. I'm doing e-hailing. We do pay tax. Like on Uber, we do pay tax. Every trip you get, before even you start the trip, Uber already take the tax money and they give to us. So we do pay tax, but taxi don't pay tax. That is loss of income from the government. They should also enforce them so that they can be able to pay tax. They should be compliant. So if you're talking about illegality or people don't pay tax, it's a taxi. Taxi and DC don't pay tax at all. So in hailing, we do pay tax. Thank you so much. Good show. See you in Cape Town.
Okay, come on. I want someone to come on and say, this is nonsense. We pay tax. We're not talking about individuals. You may get a company that doesn't. But as a standard, we, the taxi owners, we pay taxes like any other business around the country. I want that person to come on and tell us about it. It's 4 o'clock. It's time for the news. Here's Utsile.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories: calls increase for the implementation of health market findings and a major drug bust on Gauteng's West Rand. Good afternoon. The Universal Healthcare Access Coalition has called for the implementation of the full package of the health market inquiry recommendations to improve South Africa's private healthcare system. The body, which represents the majority of healthcare professionals and funders in the country, says the Health Department has failed to use existing legislative powers to manage the private healthcare market. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi attributed the slow implementation of the 2019 health market inquiry recommendations to the COVID-19 pandemic and budget constraints. Addressing a webinar, the UHAC Steering Committee member Dr. Aslam Dasu criticised government's proposed regulations to manage prices in the sector.
These regulations are an act of desperation, in our view, to show some proof of life in the NHR, which is in the Act, which is completely stymied. And in our reading of it, it is unimplementable. There's no money for it, and its provisions are completely unworkable on any reading.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has deplored the state of Gauteng and its municipalities, instructing its leaders to fix the province ahead of the G20 summit. He was speaking during his interaction with the provincial leadership of the Johannesburg Council, at the Johannesburg Council chambers in Bloemfontein earlier today. His visit is part of the district development model of integrated planning. Several cabinet ministers and their deputies, as well as government officials, accompanied the president on the visit. He's urged Gauteng and the city of Johannesburg in particular to ready themselves for the meeting of the most industrialized nations, the G20 summit later this year.
Gauteng must showcase itself to the world. The eyes of the world will be rained on Gauteng. They will be rained on Johannesburg. And Johannesburg and Gauteng must be at its best in terms of the physical presentation, in terms of the environmental presentation.
Gauteng police have arrested 2 suspects for manufacturing and possession of drugs worth more than 10 million rand. The arrests come after an intelligence-driven operation which led police to a plot in Western Area on Gauteng's West Rand where Mandrax tablets were allegedly being manufactured. Drug manufacturing equipment, chemicals and other drugs were seized at the scene. Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni.
It's another place where most probably they are doing the production, because here is a tabletting, and we worked it out to such extent that we have to do some typical type of entrapment for this particular person who's delivering the powder in here, and we got hold of him.
Johannesburg City Manager Tshepo Makola says the broader issue of affordable housing and urban management requires a comprehensive approach, including the inner city rejuvenation strategy. Makola has been testifying at the Usindiso Fire Building inquiry in Midrand. The city's annual budget is 80 billion rand, with 2.7 billion allocated to ICHIP, a 5-year program for affordable housing. Makola says the bad building strategy, which targets 74 buildings as part of strategies to renovate dilapidated buildings within the city in a measure to provide affordable inner city accommodation.
We also referred the Commission to the inner city rejuvenation or revitalization strategy, which is moves in tandem with the bad building strategy. So we're quite alive to the fact that you can't just deal with bad buildings as a challenge, because that's not your main source of your problem. That's just a symptom of a bigger urban management program that we need to be implementing, and that you find in the inner city rejuvenation long-term strategy in line with the bad building focus.
And finally, Ghana is celebrating its 68th Independence Day today. In 1957, Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to break free from British colonial rule, setting a precedent for other liberation movements across Africa. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah became the first Prime Minister and then President of Ghana. Dr. Bernard Tutu Boyene, a lecturer at the University of Education at Winneba in Ghana, says in modern day he is proud of the country's youth.
I am happy for one thing, and which I think that the youth of this country, has demonstrated in the last 3 elections, or general elections and presidential elections that has taken place in Ghana. Obviously, the youth is using, or the youth seems to be using their franchise, to elect leaders who, to them, can into the modern day of development and to prepare this country, to that level of development.
Recapping the top story, the Universal Healthcare Access Coalition has called for the implementation of the full package of the Health Market Inquiry recommendations to improve South Africa's private healthcare system. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sour Mulder joins Sunrisers Hyderabad to replace injured Koss, and Erasmus says Sia will remain captain for as long as he is first choice. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash near New Road. All lanes are open. In Pretoria, the R21 Nelson Mandela Drive southbound has a crash near Johan Rizik Drive. And on the N1 northbound, a stationary vehicle reported before Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck at Cliffdale. The N2 northbound slow moving towards Umgeni Road. The N3 westbound is queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and on the M4 northbound queuing traffic reported towards Virginia Airport. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Bakencroft Street outbound slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.2 FM in East London.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dressed to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok. The Golden Boys want to ensure their visitors return to Free State with disappointed faces. But Batabane Bantwa are ready to demonstrate how real warriors win tough battles. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal. Catch Durban City FC and Marumo Gallants FC this Sunday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hi everyone, I'm Dean McPherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. In the State of the Nation reply, I announced that we're releasing 31 state-owned properties for redevelopment that will generate 10 billion rand in investment and create 165,000 new jobs. These public-private partnerships will help us realize our dream to turn South Africa into a construction site. To achieve this, the department in 2025 will be leveraging reforms in infrastructure development through Infrastructure South Africa, release requests for proposals to redevelop our small harbours, which will create tens of thousands of new jobs, as well as reforming the expanded public works program to ensure it becomes a genuine stepping stone to permanent employment. We are accelerating efforts to get more cranes in the sky and more shovels in the ground. Our department is working for you and with you to build a better South Africa for the future.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so much to consider from what we've been discussing so far today on the National Pulse. The show starts from 3, so you've missed an hour if you tune in late, and try not to do that. You miss out on so much. Anyway, catch the podcast of my conversation with Wayne Duvenage, who believes that there's far better ways than a 2 percentage point VAT rise to be able to sort out our budget, okay? And he's given 11 examples from Outer as to how we should do it. I won't repeat them now, but one amongst the points he made, that the taxi industry, by and large, the taxi owners, okay, they do not pay taxes. So I want someone from that industry to say, that's nonsense. Or is it true? Can you tell me more? We've had lots of people commenting about it. Go ahead and comment. 086 000 2032, and then WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107, or tweet, as many people are indeed tweeting. And there's a vote line we've got on Twitter as well, on the X platform. So give me your thoughts on that too. Right. In the meantime, let's talk about the city of Joburg, right? So the president, I understand, President Ramaphosa will, over the next 2 days, undertake an oversight visit to Gauteng, where he's meeting members of the Provincial Executive Committee and the leadership of the Joburg Metro Council. Now, we say that because we're going to talk about the state of the city of Joburg. Remember, in many ways, the whole city for the G20 summit, the actual summit that takes place at the end of the year, I think November it is, right? So with me on the line is Kevin Allen, who's the MD of Municipal IQ, right? Kevin, appreciate your time. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf, and to your listeners.
All right, we're going to play some soundbites from the president based upon his observations about, the city of Joburg or the province of Gauteng. But we thought, first things first, let's play this clip here from the mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Morero. I had him as a guest a week ago, remember that? But a few days after that, he commented about the work that's taking place around the G20 summit. And this is what he said.
Indeed, we are doing our level best. We'll prioritize certain routes within Johannesburg, which are G20 routes, to ensure that at least we can make them to be at the standard at which they should be. No potholes, no crisis or traffic signals that are not working. So we are focusing on that. But we are generally focusing on the infrastructure issue, including the water infrastructure.
So, bottom line, we're prioritizing G20 routes to make them up to the standard that is required or expected. There's been, I understand, a bit of a shift from that comment thereafter from the mayor, saying, there was some misinterpretation about language or whatever, and in fact, it's for everybody. Anyway, that, I think, is a scene setter for what the president of the country has been saying. So, firstly, he talks about what inspired the oversight visit.
This was inspired by the need to deepen and broaden the intergovernmental relationship and ensure that we, as national government, take time to visit our provinces rather than just to expect our provinces to come to us in Pretoria or Cape Town all the time. So we're taking a great deal of time to go throughout the country, and we will do so once a year. And every year we will, during the life of the administration, give ourselves the opportunity to see how far our provinces are moving and as far as executing their aspirations and their ambitions, and also identify areas where we can work together and support one another in line with the precepts of our Constitution. These engagements, in our view, are crucial in strengthening the intergovernmental cooperation as well as the collaboration process, and also extending the consultation aspect of enhancing our relationship, both national and provincial. And this obviously cascades down to our metros and our local government spheres.
So we know Gauteng is, South Africa's smallest province by landmass, also the most, is it the most populous? Very close to that, and also the most densely populated too. And I won't even discuss the money issues, but certainly what happens in that province has a huge impact on the country. So in the light of all the things we've said, and what the mayor said, and the G20 summit, listen to what the president talks about regarding the challenges in that province.
Premier, we also agree with you that if we do not move with speed to address the critical challenges identified in the State of the Province address, we risk undermining the progress that we have made thus far. There are recurring problems across Gauteng. Some of these include the issue of governance failures, that is. Some of them include financial management or mismanagement. Some of them include crumbling infrastructure, crime and lawlessness, as well as unreliable service delivery. These are the challenges that are also articulated in your G13 list, which you correctly say if we do not address, we will not have served our people well. Our greatest challenges in Gauteng and across the country are, in the end, unemployment and poverty. These are the challenges we all must face head on.
Okay, and then, I speak about the importance of the city of Joburg to the country. Well, here's the president talking about the importance of Gauteng.
It has gigantic proportions. Gauteng contributes to the largest share of any province of the country's gross domestic product. It is the single most critical economic hub in the country, serving as a powerhouse of finance, governance, industry, and innovation. The economic success of Gauteng is in the end integral to the economic success of our country. If Gauteng fails, South Africa cannot succeed.
If Gauteng fails, South Africa cannot succeed. What then about the state of Johannesburg?
I should say, because sometimes it's good to be direct and to tell it as it is, I should say that one or two meetings of the G20 that I attended here was not very pleasing. The environment that one observed was not a pleasing environment. I say this so that we can improve immensely As South Africans, we're proud people, and let us get that pride that we have, self-pride, lift us up so that we do present a G20 that will wow people, so that when people look at what we offer and present, they must just say, wow.
I'd love to say wow as well. The question is, he talks about some things not being presentable. It hasn't given the detail, okay? But the president also made the point there is a need to ensure that the Gauteng metros, the many metros within that province, has to be presentable.
Not the tip-top position, where those countries showcase precisely what they are able to offer. And that in itself doesn't end there. It means that there can be continuity. Tourism can then flow from those types of meetings for first-time visitors to our country. I always tell them that by being in South Africa from wherever they will have come, there are almost 40 countries that often come, because it's the G20 countries, and then there are others that are invited. So in the end, you end up with some 40, maybe even 50 or 60 countries that are often present, including global institutions as in the World Bank, IMF, the World Health Organization, you name them, the ILO, they are all there all the time. And they have different people who may not have come to South Africa at any time. So I often tell them that they have now fulfilled, their own lives, in that they've now come to the best country that there is in the world, and tell them that their lives were incomplete by not being to South Africa. Now that they've come here, their lives are complete. But in saying so, I need to be boastful on something that is real. So I'm making a call to all of you in Gauteng, as well as in the metros. Let us make our metros presentable. We are the president of the G20, all of us collectively, one and all. And as we are going to be getting visitors throughout the year, let us make our province and indeed our country presentable.
I certainly think back to the time where in the build-up to the 2010 World Cup, we had lots of things happening, which I'll tell you about in a moment.
The Seagulls want to play their hearts out to secure maximum points on home soil.
And Pedro could be in here. Pedro's one-on-one. João Pedro! That is impeccable.
Meanwhile, the Cottagers understand the power of 3 points. They want a comfortable top half position.
Back in, Ralph. Yes! It's been coming. What a piece, and we deserve that, Fulham. That's a great finish from Raul. It was a great move.
This is the Premier League. Experience the spectacular action between Brighton and Hove Albion FC and Fulham FC. The Saturday 8 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the
game. This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Do great solutions start with a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So the comments by the mayor of Joburg and then the president about some things in Johannesburg or Gauteng not being so pleasing has got me thinking. During the time on the build-up of the 2010 World Cup, right, you had a crazy situation whereby, and let me understand this, I mean, you had a situation where all the major highways in that build-up to the 2010 World Cup were as bright as anything. That means the headlights, the lights became even brighter. It was spankingly beautiful. This is, I'm talking Joburg, right? And the outskirts. And I can tell you now, and if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I think it didn't take a month after the World Cup. And those lights on the freeways, I'm talking freeways, they went off. And you know what? And I'm talking of those very close to the inner city of Joburg, the double-decker highway and others. Do you know what they remain off? In 15 years. So, how do I say Joburg? Wow. Anyway, maybe Kevin Allen can say that. Kevin Allen is the MD of Municipal IQ. Kevin, appreciate you listening in to those sound bites we played from the president. So can you say wow to Joburg?
No, I can't say wow either, Ashraf, and I'm a resident of Joburg, so I have something personal at stake here. And yeah, I think for residents of Joburg, there are very few of us who are surprised at the president's very palpable disappointment in not only Joburg, but also in Gauteng's, in all of Gauteng's metros, and his concern that we're going to have international visitors at the G20 visiting what should be one of our proudest cities, and that we're not ready, and that generally this is the state that residents live in. You know, a place where infrastructure is poor and deteriorating, and where service delivery is poor and deteriorating.
So, I mean, there's two parts to that conversation. The one is we know it's deteriorating. There's not a day you can't go by. Last night, I traveled from Houghton to the, Parkview, Greenside area. This is about 10 o'clock at night. There was no power failures. The amount of robots, traffic lights that had no lights, you can't believe it. Oxford Road, Rosebank. It's crazy. So, yeah. I mean, and there are many others who've got examples of that. Now, here's the two sides to it. The one is the fact that we're having this decay, and we have the G20 that calls upon us to impress like a good housekeeper when visitors come. I mean, that's a good thing if it accelerates change for the better, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So just in terms of infrastructure, I mean, just to give you and your listeners a few stats. So, recently we learned that in Joburg alone, they say there's nearly 400 broken traffic signals, and there's a 70 million rand backlog for replacements. Now, I just want to tell you something very interesting about our bridges and highways. What may alarm a lot of people is that less than 6% of the city's 900 bridges are in a good condition, and the cost to bring the rest up to an acceptable standard is about 16 billion. So about 78% in total of our bridges are in poor condition. So, just think about that for a second. Think about the implications of that just in terms of what we deal with as residents driving around Joburg's roads. I mean, similarly, just in terms of water and sanitation, more than a quarter of our water and sanitation is classified as being in a critical condition. So those are just some.
So I think, I mean, you're right. There's no debate. We're not even debating whether it's whether there's been decay. I think it's obvious. Even yesterday we spoke about the inner city and hijacked buildings. That's obvious. I think that the two most important points is like, okay, that's what's happened. Why did it happen? What needs to happen now?
Yeah. So just in terms of the why it happened, and I think it's also very relevant what you say about how we were prepared for the Soccer World Cup. We were a lot more prepared, I think, as well, and we were a lot more organized, strategic, and focused on the job at hand, which was just jacking up our city a little bit and making it as great as possible for that showcase. We are not there at all, and I think it's very telling about the way the city of Joburg is being governed. Personally, I think the biggest problem is that we have had 9 mayors from different political parties over the past 8 years, just because of this, the coalition politics that is happening in our country, in our city, and the fallout from coalition politics and the lack of leadership and the selfishness of our councillors from different political parties. I think that is a very important part of the reason why there's a lack of focus in delivery over the last number of years. And it hasn't just been from yesterday. It's been a general decline over a number of years. And I think the coalition politics and the selfishness of political parties. Not only one particular political party, but a range of political parties. The selfishness of political parties and key political players has a lot to answer for.
Understandably, as they all jockey for positions, if not even total control of a council. Right. So here's the thing. What needs to happen now? I mean, we've got... I'm sounding like Donald Trump here. You've got the cards in your hands, and we don't have good cards, right? What do we need to do now?
Well, in an immediate level, I don't understand why it is that Mayor Morero can't just fix the potholes and traffic lights that are out in a number of key areas. We're not talking about relaying a road or putting in a bulk sanitation system which costs billions and takes many years. And really, I mean, the problem there is that utilities like the Joburg Roads Agency are not working well. Also, these utilities, the Roads Agency, Joburg Water, these places do not work well together, so they work in silos. Now, that is an issue of leadership. The mayor and top leaders, councillors in Joburg Council, as well as top administrative executives, need to find ways of very rapidly working to prioritise what they need to do. That doesn't sound like an insurmountable job to me, but then they need to find ways of working together. These utilities were set up to work as professional, highly specialized entities. But if Joburg Water comes and digs up half of a road, and then, people shrug their shoulders and say, well, you've just got to wait for the roads agency to come along and fix the road, Joburg Roads, then, that may take 2 months, 3 months. We've got to requisition it. We've got to go through all the paperwork. I mean, that's crazy. And I think that is a big part of the problem as well. So a lack of leadership, and then a lack of prioritization, and then obviously moving into implementation. Really Joburg has to move rapidly. Joburg is a very wealthy council with a lot of depth in terms of implementation capacity. I think we need to see our leaders really focusing people's minds in Joburg and in its utilities to get the job done.
Okay. Well, Kevin Allen, thanks for that. Thanks for that. Lots to consider coming out of that from Kevin Allen, the MD of Municipal IQ. And here's the thought. He says, lack of leadership, lack of priorities, and lack of implementation. So can they turn that around to say, prioritize leadership, prioritize priorities, prioritize implementation? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Utsila Sako.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the headlines at 4:30, the Free State ANC Secretary Pulediso Mutwening has refuted claims that the Provincial Executive Committee will be disbanded. This follows reports that factions are widening within the provincial ANC leadership. The Universal Healthcare Access Coalition has called for the implementation of the full package of the Health Market Inquiry recommendations to improve South Africa's private healthcare system. And the UN says it's releasing $110 million to compensate for what it called a brutal cut in global aid, but it added that billions more would be needed. It follows the Trump administration's decision to end funding for USAID programs across the globe. Details at 5 o'clock with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown has a crash reported after Houghton Drive exit. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash reported near New Road. In KZN, the M1 Higginson Highway in Chatsworth queuing at the N2 Highway. On the N2, a truck fire incident reported outside Port Shepstone near McChushan, and you're asked to expect delays and diversions. The N3 westbound is queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and on the N3 southbound, a truck fire incident reported near Escort North interchange, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards the M5 Kuburg interchange. The M5 southbound is queuing towards Racecourse Road exit. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. And Baden-Powell Drive eastbound in Strandfontein has a crash reported at Coastal Park. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me. So we're talking cricket, but we're not talking about our national team. And let's not talk about it. But you've got other news about
There's other news in the IPL. Well, Sunrisers Hyderabad replaced injured fast bowler Brydon Cos with South African all-rounder Vian Mulder. Hyderabad said that Cos, who aggravated a left toe injury last month, was ruled out of England's Champions Trophy campaign and would also miss the 2025 edition of the T20 League. Now, the 2016 IPL champions added that Mulder would join the team for 7.5 million Indian rupees. That's around 1.5 million rand. In rugby, Rassie Erasmus says that Siya Kolisi will continue to lead the Springboks in 2026 after shifting his mindset around the captaincy role. The boss does not believe that there will be a change in the leadership role this year, but has pinpointed the factors that may change things. Now, Kolisi heads into the 2025 season needing 8 test caps to become the latest Springbok to play 100 games for South Africa. And Erasmus says that only if Kolisi is not first choice, that's when he won't be chosen as a captain. In athletics, with the Athletics South Africa elections just a few months away, veteran Eastern Province Athletics President Stingling has thrown his support behind James Moloi for a second term as president. The 71-year-old, who served as the ASA vice president in the early 1990s, argues that a single term is insufficient for an administrator elected 4 years ago to fully implement their vision.
Just asking the guy, if you now want to elect another guy, which name will you put on the table that can know how to deal internationally and Africa and everywhere, and with the current structures of government? Tell me who, which name can you see that can do that? So all I'm saying to them is, guys, you can't just every time have a new president. But now you have to elect the vice president that will take over from him, the correct one. Now you have to forget about whether he's your friend or not or whatever. You must look at the correct person that can manage and go forward to take over from the president. If you're not happy with the president, it's fine. Select then the vice president that you know can take over from him.
In football, Cape Town City coach Mushin Echegro says the club's Betway Premiership draw at home to TS Galaxy has invited more criticism, which he is strong enough to handle. The 1-1 stalemate means that the citizens have now gone 8 games without a win in all competitions and dropped out of the top half of the standings. While the result against Galaxy at the least ended a 4-game losing streak, Echegro, who is holding the forte until the end of the campaign, was quick to point out that his dictators were entitled to their opinion.
It's the same against Golden Arrows. It's getting into that. So the last third, when we have the entries, we're working every day on it. So the last third entries, and then the pattern. So when you have those entries, who does what? Actually, the players inverse always in position. The cutbacks, the over balls, is overcooked. Not precise enough. They shoot when they shouldn't shoot. Then they go into the middle when they should pass the ball outside to get to the next behind the line. So attacking, there's a lot of let me say uncertainties in the last, because they want to with the pressure with the head through the wall, and that sometimes it doesn't work. Now you need to find solution during the game. Players like Hashim or Thabo needs to stay on the ball, and then let them come to you a little bit more, and then find the solutions again. Because we're pushing, doesn't happen. Then you need to change the pattern.
Then, still staying with football, Fenerbahce manager Jose Mourinho says that he's the opposite of racism or racist following the racism allegation made against him by Galatasaray. Galatasaray said that they would initiate criminal proceedings against Mourinho after claiming that he made racist statements following the team's goalless draw on the 24th of February. Former Ivory Coast striker Didier Drogba, who played under Mourinho at Chelsea, also came out in defense of the former Manchester United coach in the aftermath of Galatasaray's allegation. And Mourinho says that he does have bad qualities, but racist is none of them. And finally, in tennis, Naomi Osaka's roller coaster season continued with a first round loss at Indian Wells today that left the four-time Grand Slam winner apologizing on social media. The former world number one says that the match was her worst that she's ever played in her life after falling to a 6-4 and 6-4 loss to Colombia's Camila Osorio. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
All right, and I want to pick your brain and maybe something that you really want to get off your chest. I'm giving you the blank canvas on that, okay?
Righty.
Right, there we are. More sport here in an hour.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, Makwe Masilela has got all the facts and figures. He's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good to connect as always. Local and global markets in a moment, but you've got some news about First Rand.
Yes, Ashraf, First Rand, the biggest SA bank by market cap, solid operational performance, mainly due to stronger overall credit performance, and that was driven by retail credit in South Africa and much stronger credit outcome in the UK operations. Costs are growing lower than inflation, and their normalized earnings up 10%, driven by the healthy top line, and overall group net interest income up 4%, driven by core lending advances growth, continued deposit gathering, and increased capital endowment balances. But unfortunately, this healthy balance sheet growth was offset by increased interest in suspense account due to higher inflows into non-performing loans and lower margins in the UK operations. And it doesn't come as a surprise that Trump will exempt automakers from his 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico for 1 month, and now contemplating an exemption of specific agricultural products from tariffs. The US dollar has been falling against most currencies, weighed down by an uncertain economic growth outlook driven by fears of the impact of tariffs on inflation and the economy. We started the session waiting for the European Central Bank interest rate decision, and yes, indeed, they didn't disappoint. They delivered a 25 basis point cut, and locally our current account deficit narrowed significantly by almost 43% in Q4 compared to Q3, all because of strong export growth, and oil prices recovering slightly from a multi-year low, though Brent crude was still below $72 $69 a barrel, and that's because of pressure from trade tariffs and OPEC Plus plans to raise supply. Brent crude is up 0.3% at $69 a barrel, and as traders are eyeing U.S. job starter for close on interest rate path amid a rise in global trade tension, the guys booked profits. We see gold is down 0.3% at 2,908, but platinum is up 0.3%, and it's a mixed bag for global stocks, mainly because of tariff confusion, but the local boss is up 0.7%, led by our industrials, and the rent almost 0.5%.
Okay, we're just going to pause there. We're just losing Makwe's connectivity. So let's leave it at that. Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. We'll connect with him again tomorrow. But now, in fact, pretty shortly. So here's the thing. We talked about Joburg in a moment, and we made the point on the show that whichever region in this country has a water problem, we must talk about it. So let's talk about Makhanda next.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
All right, so yeah, we've got problems all around the country. So water, I did say, let me throw it out. If we're not covering your municipality or region and you have a water problem, let us know so we can talk about it. Now, it is in that context. Let's talk about the residents of Makhanda. They are going to hold a water funeral tomorrow. What does that mean, a water funeral? It happens at 12 noon tomorrow, and they're going to travel to the region of Vergenoeg. I suppose it's far enough. One of the town's working class and impoverished communities. And they've been without water for weeks, I understand. Let's get the position now from Archbishop Nkosinati Idrisi. Archbishop, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. So tell us, what does a water funeral mean?
Yeah, it means that we, the people of Makhanda, wants to deliver donational water to the community of Vergenoeg. Now, when we talk about a funeral, we are talking about a very sad event. Now, we are saying that the local government of Makhanda wants to bury the people of Vergenoeg, in fact, the people of the town. That is why we are calling it water funeral. And then we are saying, we refuse that the municipality wants to kill us through thirst. We refuse that the municipality wants to kill us through disease, because when there is no water, the disease are spreading fast, as you know. And also we are saying that we refuse that our women become abused by the municipality, because in most cases, it is women who are left behind with children and use water for the family. So that's the meaning behind that. We are saying that the Makhanda community is in a dark cloud. You know, we are like mourning. We are like in a state of funeral, losing somebody. But we are going there to say to the people of Vergenoeg, we are bringing hope, we are bringing compassion, we are bringing you, some sort of a resurrection that you don't give up.
Okay.
We have to fight all these things as a community. Yeah.
So I take it, the reason you're doing that, give us a perspective here. How long does that community not have water?
It's about a full week now, other than they had intermittent water in the past. But unfortunately, it's a full week now. And in the past 3 days, it was the hottest recorded in Makhanda. So you can imagine the situation that are living in right now. And these are poor working class communities. There is no alternative, because it would have been great if the municipality was bringing in water tanks. But even those water tanks, are alleged to have problems when people wash They affect their skins. When they drink, they affect their health. So nothing is going well as far as this thing in Makana is concerned.
Okay. So, I mean, considering you're having this water funeral, you're involved, and as the Archbishop, you'd be most appropriate, I think, to be involved. On the other hand, what about the bigger issue of the water? Meaning, what does the municipality, what does the management committee of that region say?
Sir, this is a very good question, but you are asking a wrong person. However, because I cannot speak for the municipality, but we have tried to contact the national government, because with the municipality we have lost faith completely with them. We have lost trust. We don't think they are capable of doing anything. We are basing that on the promises that they have been saying for the past 10 years, that they are going to fix that, they are going to order a palm from Italy, they are going to do this and that. But there are no positive results on the ground. Instead, things are becoming worse and worse. That is why we have appealed to national government, Department of COGTA. We also contacted Human Rights Commission, because water, as you know, is a constitutional right for the people of Makana and everywhere else. So we need to take them to task about that.
All right. So, I mean, yeah. In the meantime, what's the condition of the people? I mean, can you just tell us that part in terms of how they're coping without water or intermittent water, considering where they live in the most impoverished communities around?
Hey, my Lord, what can we do? What can we say? People are frustrated. And when there is frustration, usually my experience with the communities, it boils up to anger. And when they are at that stage, it will be very difficult to control them. At the moment, we are speaking to people to be patient. We are actually waiting for the Department of COGTA to give us the reply after the 15th of this month. Pending that reply, and then we will never be able to control, the frustration, the emotions of the community, if that reply is negative from the national government.
Absolutely.
But for now, we are saying, please cool down. We don't want this thing to boil out of proportion. And people do listen. But there will be a stage where they will get tired and want to do something that we cannot prevent.
And maybe a good start is to have this water funeral that takes place tomorrow. So Archbishop Nkosi Ngesi, appreciate your time. Thanks for raising the issue and putting it on the agenda, because I think really we need to put this concept of water watch on the agenda. You got a water problem in your community, in your municipality, we need to know about it. We need to cover it. This is the National Pulse.
Matsatsansa Apitori and the Buccaneers are well aware of how close they are to the semi-finals. They both want a VIP ticket to the last four. Who will conquer the pitch battle? Royal Blue or Black and White? This is the Nedbank Cup quarter-final. SuperSport United FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 8 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
So, by the way, just regarding the issues of taxi tax, right? We'll chat to Kanti Pai coming up shortly about just his overall response to the comments made around the VAT increase potentially at the budget speech next week, right? As per Wayne Duvenage, part of that will be obviously Wayne's comments about that the taxi industry, the owners, do not pay taxes. In the meantime, I can tell you, we'll chat to Santaco. They've confirmed to talk to us tomorrow at 4:10 to give us their response to whether taxi owners pay tax. Right, let's get a comment from you now. Anonymous first up, hi.
Hello, Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed, right? Give me your thoughts.
Okay, Ashraf, I'm part of the industry, but I will remain anonymous.
as an owner, we don't pay tax, Ashraf. What we do, we contribute to the association for savings. In an event, one of our owners lose their tax for a position, we are able to assist. But what I'm proposing, Ashraf, just to assist South Africa, I think the tax can be included on the permit, on the renewal of the permit. It can be once-off a yearly tax on the renewal, maybe an additional of a fixed amount. It can be 500 or 1,000, just to assist in terms of, because permits are renewed every year.
Yeah.
So SARS can tap in with the Department of Transport just to put the tax at the bottom to make sure that they are also taxed. So if your permit is not renewed, which means you won't be able to operate in the road.
So when you say you don't pay tax, right? And you are anonymous, I understand that. So why? And I take it it's not just you. Are you referring to an entire industry, like others like you? And if so, why don't you pay tax?
I think the industry, Ashraf, is still recognized as government as an informal sector. So I think there's not enough assistance by the government in that regard. But I think if maybe the government can review the sector and maybe formalize it so that they can assist in terms of subsidizing the industry, I think it will be easy for the industry to operate in a formal way.
And I mean, I take it at the moment, to state the obvious, if you're not being billed to pay tax, you're not going to pay. Nobody wants to pay taxes deliberately. So, I mean, anybody, we're all cash struck. So if you're not being asked to pay taxes, you're not going to do so, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true, Ashraf. Especially all the informal sectors, I think all companies that are operating within that sector, they don't pay tax. So as long as we formalize the sector and make it more regulated, I think it will be better for government to contribute. But as long as it's not formalized, I don't think there'll be any way of others being able to collect it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, thanks for bringing that to our attention, Anonymous. We'll have that chat with Sentaco tomorrow, by the way, 4:10, an organization that you say you do contribute to anyway. So there's a contribution to Sentaco. It's not tax, but it's a contribution to ensure that Sentaco can govern, but there's no contribution to the country. Think about that. Plaiki in Durban, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Yes, Ashraf, it's Plaiki here.
Yeah.
I just want to say something, man, on this tax issue on the taxes.
Yeah.
The main thing we should need to look at is that the minute the taxis are forced to pay tax, that tax will be passed on to the commuters. That is as clear as that. And when that happens, which means now the people that will be hard hit by this tax will be the commuters and not the taxi owners.
Okay.
In any way, the taxi business is operating within a highly regulated industry. When you buy a liter of petrol, that petrol, you are contributing towards the tax when you use that. And they also pay taxes for their license over the car on the road. That is there.
Okay.
All that is worked in there.
But they don't pay in. But we also do that. But they don't. I mean, if I'm buying a car and there's a road tax you're paying, there's tolls you're paying for petrol. There's a petrol tax. We all do that. But the question is, they don't pay income tax. I mean, it's tax on income and revenue generation. Is that correct? Every other business does that.
Yeah, the thing that their business mostly is dealing with the poorest of the poor. The most poorest person that does not have a means of transport will use a taxi.
But you see, I hear you. But isn't the other way around to that? You say they need to pay taxes, and then when they do that, there can be subsidies of an industry. That means government can subsidize an industry.
Like the buses, yes. Actually, the government is biased against them.
They can do that.
For the buses are subsidized, but for the taxis, they are not subsidized. That is the thing. And also, if the tax must come in on the taxis, they should also be the commuters themselves should be subsidized. That means they need to have some vouchers to go onto a taxi. In that way, it can work around. You can't just say simply taxis must pay tax. That will be immediately passed on to the commuters.
But I'm saying again, the principle must be that taxis must pay taxes, and when they pay taxes, then they get rebates. Again, to subsidize those communities.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
That can happen, but the first part is they must. There's no real difference between a taxi owner that earns, say, 100,000 rands a year. I'm just giving any figure, and myself earning 100,000 rands a year, or somebody else listening. Whatever, whether we're selling, whether we're selling bread, whether we're selling samosas, whether we're running a taxi service. The principle of income and therefore paying on your income is for all of us.
Yes, but somewhere along the line, with the taxis, there are some services to the direct services to the community with their taxis.
Fair enough.
Which the ordinary person on the street is not doing.
I agree. That's why the rebate comes in, you see. Mikey, thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's a fascinating conversation, this really. Okay, here's another.
Good afternoon, SAFM, and to listeners, Anonymous from Durban. Mr. Ashraf Gada, with regard to taxis, if somebody from the taxi industry could shed some light, how come whenever petrol price or diesel price goes up, the taxi industry never protests or strikes? Just like to find out the theory behind that. Thank you.
I don't know if they never go on strike. I think they argue when things go up. I think they do. I'm sure they do.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It is no surprise that taxi industry does not pay tax. Those people think that they are untouchable, and I don't think there's anything that they comply with. They are notorious for being law breakers. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machava from Letswata.
Right, Peter. Thank you. Right, here's another.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir. How are you? Taxi drivers don't pay tax, but I went to the banks and asked them if I'm a taxi driver, can I get a loan? And they said no. Taxi drivers do not get loans from the bank. So how can you pay tax as a taxi driver, but you can't even get a loan from the bank? It doesn't make sense. Thank you. Bye.
No, but which one comes first, the loan from the bank or paying taxes first? I can tell you now, people at the SABC, whether you're earning 1,000 rand or 10,000 rands, you have to pay taxes. Then, when you pay taxes, then you're a registered taxpayer, which shows you that you are established. And that's why it's easier then to get a loan if you need to take out a loan. Now, ideally, I hope you don't need a loan, but if you need to. The problem if you're not paying taxes, you can't prove your income. That's why you can't get a loan. Okay, I'm not the economist. That's my understanding. Here's Greg Gross.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, ANC dismisses claims of Free State disbandment and the UN releases millions in aid. Good day to you. The ANC's Free State Secretary, Poladiso Motsoeneng's refuted claims that the Provincial Executive Committee will be disbanded. This follows reports that factions are widening within the provincial ANC leadership. Motsoeneng's admitted that as a party they do have internal challenges. However, he says a visit by the ANC's National Working Committee is not informed by issues of disbandment.
It's a normal phenomenon in the ANC that the national leadership of the ANC would visit provinces to interact with the structures at the lower level to ensure that there is still life in the organization and check the state of the organization. And out of that, they will make their own determination. But the intention is also to mop up whatever the challenges that are there. So the issue that the leadership is coming, the Free State to disband, there's no such.
Universal Healthcare Access Coalition has called for the implementation of a full package of health market inquiry recommendations to improve South Africa's private healthcare system. The body, which represents the majority of healthcare professionals and funders in the country, says the health department has failed to use existing legislation to manage the private healthcare market. The coalition's Aslam Dasu.
These regulations are an act of desperation, in our view, to show some proof of life in the NHI, which is in the act, which is completely stymied, and in our reading of it, it is unimplementable. There's no money for it, and its provisions are completely unworkable on any reading. And yet there is political persistence with it, and I think that's entirely ideological and has no sensible future benefit.
An in-loco inspection has been conducted at an informal settlement at Saldanha in the Western Cape, where 7-year-old Jocelyn Smith went missing last year. The inspection was part of court proceedings in the trial that's currently underway regarding her disappearance. Several police officials have also testified during the first week of the trial. Jocelyn's mother, her boyfriend and a third co-accused face charges of kidnapping and trafficking in connection with the girl's disappearance. Police Lieutenant Colonel Lincoln Sabola.
As we had also the members, they were there to, if anything that is found there, they must package and dispatch them, as that is their expertise. At the zone where I was leading, I must also inform the court that that is a day when it was raining, but it didn't deter the magnitude of police officers that were there.
Political commentator John Molepo says the Gauteng municipalities, which will host the local government leg of the G20 meetings, should be cautious about prioritising the event over day-to-day service delivery. The Tshwane and Johannesburg municipalities will co-chair the Urban 20 cycle, a meeting of city mayors within the G20 bloc. Molepo elaborates.
So what is key is the issue of municipalities using an approach of firefighter approach, wherein they only come when there's emergency. They are able to fix the basic things when there's an activity happening and demonstrate to us that our municipalities are indeed capable. However, they can only do that when there's emergency. Why are they not doing this thing all the time to ensure that the people, the residents, are the ones who benefit?
The UN says it's releasing $110 million to compensate for what it calls a brutal cut in global aid, but it adds that billions more are needed. It follows the decision by the administration of US President Donald Trump to end funding for programs across the globe. The BBC's Imogen Folks has more.
The UN Central Emergency Fund is designed primarily to respond to sudden, unexpected crises, a tsunami, an earthquake, or an outbreak of war. Now the money is being deployed to pay for day-to-day work in existing UN programs, from maternal health in Afghanistan to support for millions displaced by the conflict in Sudan. The UN estimates 300 million people worldwide need help. It had appealed for $45 billion to provide that, but has so far received just $3 billion.
The top story, the ANC's Free State Secretaries refuted claims that the Provincial Executive Committee of that province will be disbanded. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Goos.
In sports, 100 days to go to the FIFA Club World Cup. Erasmus says that Sia will remain captain for as long as his first choice, and Pirelli to take over as MotoGP's tyre supplier from 2027. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg queuing towards Heidelberg Road. The M1 northbound in Parktown has a crash after the Oxford Road exit. In Pretoria, the R21 Nelson Mandela Drive southbound has a crash reported near Johan Rizik Drive and Daspoort Tunnel northbound, queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. The M1 Higginson Highway in Chatsworth is queuing at the N2 Highway. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound has a crash before Monte Vista Boulevard. The N2 in Somerset West is slow moving at Victoria Street, and the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound in Mitchells Plain queuing towards the R300 Highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Sportlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. Whether we are at the workplace, within communities, at school, or with our friends and family, we all need to demonstrate the kind of responsibility that we would like to see in our country's future. SAFM commemorates Human Rights Month.
Right, now, make a note of this. From the 10th to the 16th of March, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, right, that's SANBI, well, they're hosting its first National Gardens Week. Visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens and the Pretoria Zoo. This year's theme is Grow Your Joy. Got it, Grow Your Joy. So there's an inviting visitors to embrace nature, wellness and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour or learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Now, what can you do? Nature has never been this open to all. Celebrate, protect and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit sanbi.org. You got that? www.sanbi.org for details.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, in the first 2 hours of the show, we've had some fascinating conversations. First about the whole, the China-USA tariff war that's certainly there, that's emerging, and that's not all. The issues of Makhanda having this water funeral, and you know what that means, because clearly there's a issue about water in that region of the Eastern Cape, and there's more. The Joburg City, even the president of the country suggesting around the G20 visits they've had already that he was not very pleased with what he saw with Joburg. Well, why are you surprised, Mr. President? I mean, seriously, why are you surprised about that? So we've had more than that and lots of other comments, right? But the biggest issue we've had is a conversation we had earlier on with Wayne Duvenage when he suggested that instead of having a 2% plus increase in the budget as per proposal a few weeks back, there are 11 ways that Outer has put together. They think that there's better ways to do that and it'll be fine, right? So that's one thing. And the second part of that, one of the proposals was like, hey, get the taxi owners to pay taxes. He was very clear, very emphatic, no maybe, no ambiguity, saying taxi owners, by and large, do not pay taxes. So we thought, let's get the thoughts of Kanti Pai to comment about just some of the proposals made by Wayne Duvenage. Kanti is a senior economist at PwC. Kanti, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
It's always very good to speak to you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, I know you've had the privilege of checking out the 10 plus or the 11 proposals made by Outer as a way of avoiding the 2% plus VAT increase that if not 2, could be 1 or half, imminently so in a couple of days' time now, right? What do you make of it? What would you like to comment on there?
Yeah, look, Ashraf, I think there isn't a shortage of suggestions in terms of how we do this, but what is really important is what could be effective. Remember, even when we were thinking about the 2% increase in VAT, one of the things that we have to consider is whether or not we are able to collect that VAT, because one of the key things is that if I say, we know that, for example, it will increase prices of certain goods, and so sometimes people spend less because things cost a little bit more. So when you put on a little bit in terms of tax, that tax doesn't always collect. It's the same thing that we've had a trouble with a couple of years ago, where we increased income tax, and then or other taxes. What usually happens is that you then are not able to collect that because of the returns that you may get. So that is something that's unusually complicated. So even when we think about increasing VAT, tax on taxes, you have to be able to trace the money. So you have to say, for example, how are these taxes actually collecting the money? Where is that money reflecting? Are they putting it in the bank? Are they making tax returns? So how do you actually collect it? It's also been the same conversations around the wealth taxes. We know that the wealthy don't usually sort of keep their money in glare. And so it's usually difficult to get the data so that you can tax, because we can actually effectively tax if we have the data of the availability of the money, knowing that where the money is sitting, how much of that money is there, so that you can actually tax it. And so that's always been the difficulty. It's not so much whether we have the suggestions, whether or not we can actually implement.
Okay, but I mean, staying with that point, I mean, if, for example, the country's cash struck, which it is, we know that, right? It's not like we're low.
Yes.
We've had low GDP. We are absolutely struggling, right? So we need more money. And the 2% plus increase is a good example of just that. Like, if we don't have the money, how do we service deliver? So it is in that context to say, yes, maybe the taxi industry is quite unique and it's very, very cash intensive in its moment. But there's so much to have earned from that. I mean, doesn't it surprise you that nothing has been done over these many years to ensure that some form of tax is paid, even though then maybe the industry gets a rebate in some form for providing a very, very important role around providing transport, mainly through township communities?
Sure. There's no doubt, Ashraf, that the taxi industry does pay tax. Remember, they pay the fuel levy. They're probably one of the bigger consumers of fuel in terms of being in the transport system. So there is certainly that. You know that they pay VAT, for example, when they tax purchases. They certainly service the cars. Some of them have insurance. So there is actually, in terms of VAT, there's certainly tax in terms of as I said, the fuel levy. So there's no doubt the road accidents. So there is really, the tax is being paid there. Where the difficulty is, of course, as you've said, personal income tax may be also there because some of them can be, we don't know whether or not there are no income tax returns that are being filed.
So I mean, whether it's personal income tax or whether it's business owners, right, that run paying taxes, right? I mean, that's the bigger part, because I mean, all the examples you gave about fuel levies. In fact, you and I also pay. We also pay VAT, right? We do all of those things, right? So what sets them apart? And I'm only saying that because we're trying to find more money so that we as a country can thrive.
Sure. And I suspect that the answer to your question is really about actually tracking that tax in a cash economy. I suspect that's the big part, because they have a cash industry, and that's usually very difficult to work towards a tax. So one of the key things that SARS has been able to do, for example, is look at at assets that people own. So if you're a taxi driver and you go out and we know you are you are actually spending your money buying a BMW, then we can track that in terms against the income that you have because you own a BMW and how you pay that BMW. So there are those parts where SARS is now able to do that. And one of the key things SARS has said is give us the right kind of funding so that we can get the technology and the AI and all of that to be able then to track those funds, to be able then to tax them. So I think that is probably where the opportunity is in terms of new information collection by SARS and their ability and their intelligence to be able to collect the taxes in that kind of industry.
Well, that's the point that Wayne Duvenage from Outer made about capacitate a pretty efficient organization already in SARS, and South Africa will be a better country for that, right? But let me leave it to you to just reflect on the others outside the tax issue, right? So as you know, Wayne has given a whole series of suggestions. What for you are most workable amongst those suggestions?
The more for me on a general basis, because I don't want to prefer one over the other, general suggestion on how we actually reduce spending, because that's a key thing. Remember, Ashraf, one of the things we have to recognize is that if we don't reduce spending in terms of where we are not being effective, and I want to be very clear in terms of where we are not effective in that spending, so the spending that we have to spend on, is that the base still stays high, so that actually if we don't do that and we lower the base, every increase in every other year will find us where we are now. So there's always an important part to say, how are we more effective? How do we reduce in a manner that allows us to keep the base low, to pay for the services that are essential, and to be able then to actually grow the economy? So that's really the key thing here, is to make sure that we are actually, the government pays a lot of close attention to the kind of expenditure that we know does not deliver in terms of the outcomes that we want, and that we try and reduce that and be able then to say, look, we are not successful.
And what examples do you have of that? I mean, outside of corruption, which is another whole discussion completely, we can't debate and defend that. That's a given, right? That needs to be eliminated. But in terms of reducing expenditure that doesn't deliver the type of desired outcomes, what are they?
Yeah. One of the key areas has been, we know that, for example, we are lacking a lot of capacity in municipalities. It's something that we've talked about for a long time, and that it will take us a long time, for example, for some projects to get off the ground or to be spent effectively. And there we can say, look, can we borrow that money in these coming years, in this year and the following year, where we know that expenditure is not effective, that the capacity to spend it properly is not there, and we will give it back once we've built that capacity. One of the key areas is that might be a very, very important way to do that, to say, look, in the next 3 years, we know we want to spend on infrastructure, but we are not well positioned to spend on that infrastructure in certain municipalities, and so to allocate the funding is not a very good thing to do. So how do we think around that kind of thinking? So that we borrow it and then we build the capacity. So if we wanted to spend 100 million, do we spend 10 million now to build the capacity? And then in the next 2 years, when things starting to get better, we then deploy the funding. And that's something that, because we've seen the amount of money that keep coming back to the Treasury, having been allocated, having had some of the borrowings being put there to try and fund them. So it's an important thing to say, look, how do we actually do that? It's a difficult conversation, of course, at this time in the economy, and probably approaching politically. Yeah.
Now, the other part of it is, of course, if you have more, they talk about broadening the tax base, right? The outside the white collar business people, which you've discussed, and the taxi industry. There are so many people unemployed. Clearly, they're not paying tax because they're unemployed, right? And even if they are employed, they'll be earning the lowest amount of income, which they're not entitled to pay tax, which is completely understandable. But it does then put a challenge to all of us, and certainly where you sit as an economist. How do we grow that economy so that more people can get jobs ASAP to the point where they would earn sufficiently? I sound like the minister here, right? To be able to. I mean, how do we do that as a matter of urgency? Because it is urgent, isn't it?
It is urgent. But actually, I think, as you know, that you and I have discussed these interventions over and over again. But there's nothing new, really, that I could tell you. But what is very, very clear is that the interventions that we've all talked about have not been implemented in the rigorous way that we have talked about. So we know, for example, that we have a serious problem around skills and the uptake of young people to actually participate. And this is a particularly important area because we keep talking about skilled people, but we are not bringing people for the right kind of training. It's a simple thing, Ashraf. If we are buying a machine, we know that a company will say, look, I need a machine. And this machine is going to help me increase the production. We don't not take that because we don't have the way we know. And then we know we're going to go and get a mechanic to come and implement it and make sure it's functional. We have to apply the same kind of approach when we think about skills and young people. We have to say, look, we know we need more labor. We know we need the skills. Then we're going to have to invest in those skills in a manner that can actually support the economy. So we have to think about it in that sense, that we think about a machine, we think about it, and we say, well, we may not know how to actually put it on, but we know we can get somebody who can put it on. We know we're going to learn how to use it. And that's really the kind of thing about how do you actually bring in young people and make them functional and fit for purpose. And if we have that kind of approach, which has always been an old approach that we've had, it seems that in the past few years, we've sort of thought that it's going to happen on its own, but there's going to be a very serious and effective thing. Because also, as we understand, the more people we have in the economy working at and earning incomes, the more the economy grows up because they invest in terms of spending into the economy. We know that expenditure has been something that drives economies because the more people work, the more they actually
last thing is you got 45 seconds to answer this one. So we have this budget speech coming up. We know it was postponed. What do you think is going to happen? With a laugh.
Look, there's no likeliness that it will be postponed. So that would send a really devastating message in terms of the stakeholders, including business people, investors, and everybody else who's concerned about how we budget, including everybody else. So that would be a problem. So that's not. What we're actually going to get is probably a lot more kind of signaling about what we are actually trying to do. One suspects that the minister says, we are now having to borrow a little bit more, but let's signal that we can pay that back. Let's signal that we are actually managing the situation. So I'm suspecting that a big thing here is going to be how we signal towards the things that we have to do in a serious manner that is actually more credible. And that's probably a big thing that we have to do.
March the 12th is when it all happened. Kanti Pai, I appreciate your time. Senior economist at PwC. Lots to reflect on that conversation, isn't it? Right. In fact, I understand that the president is having a meeting with Microsoft as well. And there's more things we're going to cover. All the things that matters to you and to myself, and the entire nation after all. This is the National Pulse.
March is International Women's Month, a time to honor the strength, resilience, and rights of women everywhere. The GBVF Response Fund is sharing a reminder that women's rights are human rights. But today, amidst global and national instability, women's equality is under threat. Now is the time to reclaim our power, demanding fair access to social services and opportunities. Together, from our homes to our communities, let's raise our voices and create a future where every woman and girl can thrive. Because when women rise, nations rise. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Lots of people sending me comments from last year's financials in terms of the taxi industry being 100 billion rands and only paying 5 million rands in tax. We'll find out more about that tomorrow. But your comments on this issue, taxi, tax and other things, we'll take all that around 5:45, so look forward to that. But in the meantime, let's now cross live to the President Ramaphosa. He has had a meeting with Microsoft to talk about something as big as the taxi industry, if not more, the growth of the country's digital economy.
This, in many ways, will enable our citizens to transact and conduct online services safely. Already we've got an arm of our government, SARS, through which we are able to interface with what SARS does to collect money. That's what they exist for. So when you see the commissioner here, all he's interested in is your money. He wants to collect your money. But they do it so effectively. And I'm very glad, Brad, that you've recognized that as a government we are acceding to higher levels of utilizing digital skills, particularly artificial intelligence. And as part of our work to reform the public service and to build a capable state, we are investing in digital public infrastructure to give South Africans access to government services anytime, anywhere. When I addressed the nation during what we call, Brad, our own State of the Union, the State of the Nation address, we focused the nation's attention on one of our key priorities, which is building a capable state. And to build that capable state means that we want to give the people of our country great services, like what SARS is doing now. Our Home Affairs is going to be doing more and more of that. And we will spread it through our other departments that interface with our people. And Microsoft is one of those companies that are going to enable us and help us to be able to reach that level of proficiency. And at the heart of this process, which we call transformation, is the implementation of the digital identity system that will transform the relationship between citizens and government and create one government that is accessible to every person at a touch. And today, those who interface with SARS, those who are taxpayers, are able to interface with our government through a number, through logging on, and get every service that SARS has to give, but especially as they get your money out of your pocket. But beyond blazing a trail in local technology space, the long-standing presence of Microsoft in South Africa is a vote of confidence in our country and in our economy. And I'd give Microsoft, and I'd like to give Microsoft, you can applaud again, a round of applause for showing this confidence in us. Because the strategic investments that Microsoft has announced today stand as a further testimony to this enduring confidence. And for us, what it also means is that indeed we are the gateway into our continent. We've got that capability as a nation and as a country. Now, they signal also to the business and investor community that South Africa's economy continues to hold immense potential, and a potential that is favorable to business and for them to be able to know that they can invest here in a secure manner. Over the past 5 years alone, Microsoft has invested significantly in cloud, in data centers, in agriculture, and in the digital transformation of government services. It is commendable that Microsoft in many ways has achieved level 1 broad-based black economic empowerment status. This shows an exceptional commitment to our country's empowerment goals. And we know that Microsoft has worked very hard to attain this level. And they've been walking this journey of transformation, of change with us as a country. And it has successfully integrated the objectives of our policy positions, our transformative policy positions, into its business operations, particularly with respect, yes, to the issue of empowerment, of ownership, management, control, but more importantly, skills development. And Microsoft has demonstrated its commitment to addressing the historical imbalances of South Africa's past and to the fostering of an inclusive business environment. Brad, your speech and your input in your presentation was most moving indeed. But the one part that really touched something in my heart was when you did the analysis of looking at the disparity between the global north and the global south. And not many people from the north fully understand what the past that we've been through, and you mentioned the word colonialism, and in our case we mentioned apartheid as well, what that did to entrench that separation between the global north and the global south. And indeed, why is the spread of electricity so stark when you look at the global north and the global south? And then you also drill into your analysis what is happening on our continent. As a country, we have, by dint of hard work, by dint of focusing on what needs to be done to advance the interests of our people, we've been able, Brad, to ensure that almost 93% of the people of South Africa have electricity. And we are very proud about that. Now, this is not what you find in many countries in the global south. It's not what you find in many countries on our continent. And you are therefore in a country that aspires to progress, a country that aspires to be transformative, and a country that aspires to move up the ladder in as far as the digital economy. And it is no wonder that Microsoft defines its mission and its values with the words, "We empower the world." Now, in our briefing session before we came here, I told you that when I saw that word, I just got so endeared to Microsoft. I said, "You empower?" That is the one word that I love the most, because it is about empowerment. Now, today's meeting is indeed about the story of Pathfinders for South Africa and for the continent. And your input was more about a call to arms, to embrace innovation. And AI's transformative potential cannot be understated. I mean, apart from making me look very handsome, it cannot be understated. And the global community is rushing to harness the opportunities that it presents. Now, as the United Nations Development Program has said, AI's development, governance, and the use must be inclusive as well as equitable. It must ensure that no country is left behind. Now, Microsoft's commitment to continue training our people here, 50,000 and more, and making sure that up to 1 million people do have access, means that it is committed to leaving no one behind. And AI holds great potential to also drive economic growth, as we saw in Brad's presentation. And AI-powered computing capabilities can bolster existing industries and can bolster businesses as they build their own business models and pave the way to the creation of new businesses. And our main remit as a government is to ensure that we create a conducive environment for businesses to be created, for businesses to grow, and for businesses to contribute to the growth of our economy. Now, as a country, we are developing a national AI policy that seeks to position South Africa as also a leader in AI innovation, while at the same time addressing its ethical, economic, and societal implications. We must heed the words of the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who said that artificial intelligence without guardrails could further exacerbate inequalities and digital divides. The AI revolution is a catalyst, as far as one has deciphered, for job creation, but particularly for young people. Last week at the annual Lekgotla of our basic education sector, I said that future-proofing of our education system means coming to terms with the reality that the first fully digital generation is already in high school today as we speak. The next generation, Generation Beta, will be immersed in tech and in AI from birth and will enter a world of work that is light years away from what it is today. I've said in the past that, I went to a conference in Mexico and met, you might be interested to know, Brad, teachers from Canada, and we were talking about coding, and they said they are already teaching coding at 2 years old. 2 years old, and I came back and I said, at 2 years old, they're already doing that. We only start much later. And this is the world that we are in now. And building a robust AI talent pool is therefore a must, and it is critical for us. The application of AI will need to be integrated into our educational curricula. Specialized training programs will need to be offered, and strong partnerships will also need to be forged between academia and industry. As part of its commitment to digital transformation for sustainable development, Microsoft has invested in AI skills as well as training for SMMEs, and we are grateful for that. It has dedicated considerable resources, I'm told, into supporting Black-owned companies pioneering for IR technologies, and we just saw on their pictures some of them. So Microsoft's plans to train 1 million South Africans in AI skills, machine learning, and cybersecurity by 2026 is immensely encouraging and very impressive for a country such as ours with such a high youth unemployment rate. This comprehensive training will not only prepare young people for jobs in high-tech industries, it will also facilitate self-employment. You spoke about the YES program. It was when I sat down with Stephen Kosef, who used to be the CEO of Investec, and I said, what can the private sector do? What can the private sector do to make sure that young people are job prepared? They get into job situations and be well prepared so that when they get into the world of work, they are ready. And it's pleasing that that program got started. When we launched it, well, initially I thought that it would be like, hundreds of thousands. But it's been building up. It's building up momentum. And I'm rather pleased that a number of companies, including Microsoft, are part of this whole effort. It will contribute to a new generation of tech and software entrepreneurs, this whole process, that will bring innovation and high-tech solutions that support economic growth and also will help in advancing our country's competitiveness. So Microsoft's commitment to supporting South Africa's transition to a high-tech economy comes for us at a pivotal time as we are hosting the G20. Using AI for sustainable development is amongst the priorities of our G20 partnership, which we have put out there. The Artificial Intelligence Data Governance and Innovation Sustainable Development Task Force that we have set up will be leading the whole stream. We look forward to engagement with the B20, and I'm glad that people like Puti is here, the CEO of Naspers, in her role also as being a leader in the B20, and other industry stakeholders is in support of the task force work is going to be truly, truly meaningful, because it is here in South Africa that we will showcase, and aided and abetted by companies such as Microsoft, the effectiveness of artificial intelligence and how AI can be utilized to power economic growth. And we have high expectations that our G20 presidency will result in what I would call tangible outcomes, both expanding the global digital economy and leveling the AI playing field for the benefit of all. And it is here in Johannesburg that we are hoping that when the G20's declaration is drafted, it will have a huge component of speaking to the AI process and generated here in discussions, as many countries who are part of the G20 will be also participating. Our country and continent has huge potential driven by the talents and the energies of our people. It is up to all of us, and in many ways working in partnership, that we can ensure that artificial intelligence and its associated technologies does not deepen the digital divide, but actually narrows it and finally eliminates it. And I think it is possible. As we look towards hosting the G20 summit later this year, we are committed to ensuring that the adoption of new technologies catalyzes and boosts Africa's growth, and as well as industrialization, as well as Africa's progress. So we are excited to partner with Microsoft to make this a reality. You come to make this announcement at an opportune moment for us in our throes, or in the throes of us chairing and heading the G20. But not only that, in having these conversations in the G20 about artificial intelligence. So your presentation, Brad, today is just an enormous boost, but it is also your recognition of South Africa's ability to adapt and to utilize the technologies of artificial intelligence and to integrate that into the work that we do in government. And one of our government departments leading in this process being SARS, Home Affairs about to follow, various other departments in government also going to follow, our health system, and indeed our benefits, the grant system also will follow in tow. So we are involved as South Africa in a revolution of embracing artificial intelligence. So what you have done today is to come to boost that whole process, and I'd like to thank you, and I do wish you could stay longer, because this is the best place that anybody who is enthusiastic about AI can ever come to. South Africa. Thank you.
Right. Well, I think that's so significant. Of course, we didn't take the news. My apologies for that. We didn't take sport. My apologies for that. But we do believe that conversation by the president with Microsoft in terms of an investment in digital technology and the digital economy, as well as artificial intelligence, is so critically important because, right, land's important, but understanding the digital economy is as empowering as land in the world that we live in right now. Okay, we'll then continue with the show. We will take your calls as well coming up shortly.
The Golden Boys want to ensure their visitors return to Free State with disappointed faces. But Batabane Bantwa are ready to demonstrate how real warriors win tough battles. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal. Catch Durban City FC and Marumo Gallants FC this Sunday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, so very, very delayed. Your show comes up at 6 o'clock, Jimmy. But of course, I have no doubt that, like myself, you were certainly listening to every word the president said.
Absolutely, Ashraf. I was interested, particularly because of that announcement from Microsoft ahead of the president's speech. I wanted to know just where we go to with these sorts of investments and why these sorts of investments come at this critical time in South Africa's economic journey. Nonetheless, we are going to be reflecting on some other news in our show a little later on. We're going to be taking a look at First Rand results, Sanlam results, as well as some updates from the team at the FSCA. So we're going to be speaking to all of those organizations, trying to get a better sense of what's happening on their side. We're also going to be taking a look at an SME because it is Thursday, and we do that on a Thursday. And we're going to be getting a sense of what a company called Wise Move gets up to and how that business was built. Before we get to all of that, let me give you a quick rundown of what's been happening on the markets throughout the day. The Rand has been fighting against the US dollar, 18 Rand and 15 cents at the moment there, against the British pound, 23 Rand 41, the euro 19 Rand 66, and $1 Australian about 11 Rand 52. I think the Rand's performance against the US dollar is quite a standout performance at the moment. It is almost 1.6% stronger against the US dollar at this stage. So I'm going to be looking at that for sure in our show a little later on. I'm also going to be taking a look at the Brent crude price dipping back below $70 a barrel, $69.53 a barrel at the moment. Platinum and palladium pricing holding steady around the $980 to $960 odd dollars an ounce. The gold price having a relatively good day, $2,912 an ounce, benefiting off of the risk sentiment that we're seeing in the market at the moment, or the risk-off sentiment rather. If we look at international markets, the Hong Kong markets were up about 3.1%. They were the biggest gainer in Asian markets. The Shanghai index was up 1.1%. As a result of those gains, we saw that Naspers was up quite a bit locally, more than 5%, and that was a big boost to industrial sector stocks that closed the day up 1.6% locally. Resources up 1.2% locally, and the financial sector stocks, unfortunately, down about 1%. If we look at the overall performance of the all share, 0.2% up, and the top 40 0.2% up as well. Anyone looking at Bitcoin, it's been quite a volatile time. At some point we were below 90,000, now we're back above 90,000, 91,380 odd dollars a coin, or in South African Rand terms 1.655 million Rand. I'm going to be looking at these movements as well as all the other economic data that has been coming out when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. And certainly we'll be watching or listening to your show 6 to 7 here on SAFM.
Mazatsanza Apitori and the Buccaneers are well aware of how close they are to the semi-finals. They both want a VIP ticket to the last four. Who will conquer the pitch battle? Royal Blue or Black and White? This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal. SuperSport United FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 8 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Okay, let's get to your thoughts on some of the biggest issues we've been talking about today. And there's a whole range of them. We probably need, like somebody said yesterday, a 4-hour show, maybe a 6-hour show. It's not going to happen. Hassan Logan, let's get your thoughts. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. I didn't get the mud-coated Brett's comments, but the president was clearly very complimentary.
Yeah.
Part of my concern is that, in the early days of our democracy, President Mbeki and others were basically trying to cut Microsoft, because I think every year we have to pay a kind of license, and these proprietary systems are not coming cheap. It locks you into a particular system, like servicing a car with a certain brand. You can only buy those parts. And we were very committed to building open source, and we had Shuttleworth and various other such people. So that's the one part of it. The second part that I'm really concerned about is that you were saying that it doesn't, it's not like land, etc. In fact, my partner just shared with me some of the stuff on the materiality of the internet, where a lot of land space is used to cool the servers that these guys use. And in some places, like in Spain, it takes away the water resources much needed for irrigation and for livelihoods to make sure that these servers are cooled down so they could be used. So, what I'm saying to you, that the benefit of being a late developer means we don't have to be excited because Microsoft is not as bad as Donald Trump, because he loves us, etc., etc. We should take that love. It's fine, because we also feel a bit bruised and beaten up. But the point is, we have the chance actually to try and determine what pace of the development that we want to try and move. We take from here, we don't take that. But just rushing into this kind of AI and other stuff like it, they use a lot of other materials that is so necessary that causes social unrest. In fact, I work in the field of critical raw materials, and there's a fight there for, as you can see in the DRC, for tin, tungsten, and stuff like that. These lead to wars, right? So, and by Trump just going to Zelensky after he offered it, give me this, give me that, old-style imperialism, because those minerals make these things cheaper, cleaner, and greener.
Well, I'll tell you what, Hassan, point well made. I hear you. I mean, I think my point is about, I'm saying as the need for land and investment in land is so critical to our country, the way the digital economy is going, you have to be able to embrace it, and all the people need to do so. Otherwise, we will get left behind. Now, your point is also valid. We can't run into every, and I don't know the details of the Microsoft one. Clearly, I also didn't hear the whole thing. But we can't rush in like we're part of a fan club. I would agree with you on that part. And then the other part that you're making is that, yes, we do need to see how sometimes investments can also damage the landscape, which is important. So I don't know the facts. We'll probably find out more. Just dig deep into that. Thank you for your time. Hassan Lorgat,
thank you, Ashraf.
Raising the issues, I would think, that matters here on the National Pulse. Right. Further comments, is Microsoft an American company? The same Americans led by Mr. Trudeau, I think it's called. Yeah. Okay. Well, certainly you know that, right? Cyril's speech smacks of globalism and communism. It's simply to introduce a global digital ID to enslave us all to their new world order. Where is our choice? I didn't hear anything about whether we could choose or reject it. Well, of course, we never heard the whole speech, to be fair. But, I mean, here's the point. I'm certainly not betting for Microsoft. But, and I say betting is in B-A-T-T as opposed to B-E-T-T. But we also can't ignore being part of a global economy. We can't ignore that. We're not strong enough to ignore that. We need to empower ourselves. But even the USAs that appears to be on this pathway that could well see them being isolated, never mind what they think right now, they will find at some stage down the line that if you are in this isolated economy or world, you will find yourself being well, not just a victim, but you would find yourself on the back foot, unable to recover or being completely bruised. And South Africa can't really do that, can we? All right, let's get further thoughts on the president. But this is from the earlier conversation about his thoughts on Gauteng, right?
Azaraf, good afternoon as well. So where is the president? Where was the president? On his farm, up in the air, in Cape Town, sitting in his big fancy multi-billion rand property. So where was he when this all started? This didn't happen now. Didn't happen yesterday. Happened years back. So thank you, Mr. President, for again highlighting the obvious as you normally do. Have a good one. God bless.
Okay. Not going to say, no need to say much more than that, right? Lots of comment about the taxi tax.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It is no surprise that taxi industry does not pay tax. Those people think that they are untouchable, and I don't think there's anything that they comply with. They are notorious for being law breakers. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machava from Letswata.
Okay, points taken there. Let's get more.
Good afternoon, SAFM, and to listeners, Anonymous from Durban. Mr. Ashraf Gada, with regard to taxis, if somebody from the taxi industry could shed some light, how come whenever petrol price or diesel price goes up, the taxi industry never protests or strikes? Just like to find out the theory behind that. Thank you.
Right, let's get some more. We need to get through further comment here.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mqede here in Gala. Ashraf, there is no need for the government to increase the VAT tax from the poor, not working South Africans. While we still have the money that just go around in circle in this country. Like, tell me, Ashraf, the works of the deputy ministers in all the departments in this South Africa, and also there is this parade, this fancy parade in this sauna that are happening in the country, and even in the budget speech. Thanks, Ashraf Mqete here in Tsala.
Okay, thanks for that, Mtete. I think we played one or two voice notes twice over. My apology for that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I'm so disappointed. These African leaders, they're always saying African problems, African solutions. There's Tshisekedi now, DRC president, calling Trump now to come and colonize DRC just for them to fight M23. If it was for M23, if he cannot win against M23, why not invite all the African countries, each country to bring 2 helicopters, 2 jets, 2,000 men? One day, M23 will be gone. But now, there he is now, starting the colonization of Africa again. He's inviting Trump now. Where is that thing of African problems, African solutions? I'm so disappointed. Ashraf. Norman from Brixton.
Okay, your point is made, but just to flip it around, I think the African problems for African solutions is great, but in practice it's not always possible, isn't it? I'm not suggesting inviting Trump to colonize the DRC is correct, not at all, okay, but maybe just a bit broader in terms of what we can and can't do.
Good day, Ashraf. I totally agree with your speaker about the taxi issue. There is no industry that's supposed to be treated special. The taxi industry is a huge industry in this country that dominating in the economy of this country. So it should be on the tax. They should be taxed, those taxes, because you can't just let the under industry out, then you choose the under industry to pay the taxi like the way you're doing now at spaza shops. That's the way it's supposed to happen on the taxi industry also as well.
Well, spot on. If you're regulating the spaza shops to make them real, not spaza, then why not the taxis? But they've been around for a long time, so why have they not been enforced? Like, who stands to gain from that?
Good afternoon, Ashraf Gada. I wish Cyril Ramaphosa would come do a walkabout in Makanda and tell he can tell the municipality here to start fixing up our dreadful roads. That's what we need, and to get all the leaks sorted out. Yeah, just suggest that to him next time you speak to him, Ashraf. Thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that. There's this water funeral in Makanda, so point has been made from that community, isn't it?
Afternoon, Ashraf. You were talking about the performance of Liverpool, that they were so outplayed by PSG. The championship winning team is a team which, even though it's not playing very well, still manages to grind out a win. That's a team which will win. Andrew from Pataway.
Andrew, for a person who doesn't support Liverpool, you are right. It breaks my heart, but that's exactly the point. True.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I just want to know, is it compulsory for the cricket captain to be always the first one batting? Or they can change whenever they want? I think they should change the betting order, captain should be coming less somewhere in the middle or stuff like that. If it's not compulsory, can you please ask your sports journalist there, please? Anonymous from Soweto, thank you.
Thank you. Interesting point. No, clearly it's not compulsory. And I think but in South Africa, many captains have just happened to be opening the batting. Graham Smith, Hashim Amla at some stage too, well, it was coming at one down. But no, I think many of the best captains in the world have been I think they're probably all-rounders coming in at number 6. But very few, I think, are bowlers. I'm not saying they're not. A captain can be anything. You can be a bowler or a wicket-keeper too. Vuyo in Cosmo. Go for it, Vuyo.
Hi, Ashraf. Just a comment on the taxi industry, or maybe a question here, is how do you think it will be possible to tax someone? You can't say you've made this much. These guys it's a cash business, so it's literally almost impossible to be able to say, okay, we are taxing you on, this much. And also the other thing that we consider when we start throwing out the taxation is that the taxi industry doesn't have, regulations. They can just push the increases, or whatever increase they get, they push it onto the people that are using the taxis. So it's the small guy who gets affected at the end of the day. It's not them. So let's just consider that, because once we start pushing those narratives, that it's the smaller guy who's going to get affected.
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily pushing a narrative. I'm stating a fact. If they're not taxed, how can they not be taxed? And, spaza shops are being regulated. How is it that... Well, we're looking at potentially having, automated voting. And you heard the president talking earlier on. We have to move with society. You can't say because it's a cash system, that's how we're going to leave it always. Here's another.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I'm not sure if Wayne has actually really thought about this, but almost 95 to 99% of taxi owners sole traders, and those sole traders pay personal income tax. So he might have to rethink this taxi industry story.
Well, I think he did say he did talk about business owners, and I think you're right. I mean, you can have a personal business, income tax, but you can have a business, and many people own a fleet of 10, right? Here's the last comment on Wayne.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol here from Durban. Look, I couldn't agree with Wayne anymore. He's 100% right. But, especially the state capture, we must try and reclaim a lot of that money that was mentioned in the Zondo report. People that were mentioned. And, what I would add to it is stop funding and trying to bail out useless government things like the post office.
Okay, got that. That's the show. That's the National Pulse. Thanks for being a part of it. Couldn't play all the calls or voice notes because we had to cut away to the president, as you're well aware of. Let's do it again tomorrow. We will talk to Santako about taxis and taxes. All of that tomorrow on the National Pulse. Let's get the news. Here's Greg House.
Thanks again, Ashraf. Malema speaks out over halt in U.S. funding, and the ANC dismisses claims of Free State disbandment. Good evening. South Africa is bearing the brunt of its Palestinian support against Israel, which led to the U.S. government halting aid to the country, with a number of other nations also affected by the halt.